Welcome to the Jamal Thomas Morning Show. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is indeed my show. I'm glad that you could join me. I always say, wherever you are, if you're under the sound of this voice, you have my deepest appreciation for being under the sound of this voice. We have a damn good show for you today. Dr. Wilmer Leon, he's going to be on first thing at 7:15. Carl Jha is going to have a conversation about, let's say, the results of the Trump Xi Jinping summit, the highly anticipated, highly hyped summit. Now, some of the guests that I've had on the show, Jerry Gray, for example, he was on yesterday. He pointed out Trump is going to get nothing. He has no cards. He is not going to get anything. And regardless of what he said in that meeting, that the rare earths and the policy towards rare earths are not going to change. And it sounds like Jerry Gray is a prophet. He was right. Trump got squat. Trump folded like a cheap suit. And look, the reason why I say he got squat and the reason why I say Trump folded, Trump initiated the trade war. Trump decided to screw around after China and Russia kind of had this kind of détente and made somewhat of a deal for a bit of a stalemate. Trump did this stuff. And so if you are the initiator, you're initiating because you're trying to get some kind of advantage in the context of whatever negotiation you're effectively doing. And you get nothing. You get no advantage. And not just not getting any advantage, the rare earth stuff doesn't seem to be changing at all. Donald Trump and Xi Jinping had a 1.5-hour meeting. Donald Trump came out. There was no joint statement. Trump got in a limo, shook his hand, got into a limo, and effed off on Air Force One. That was a series of events. There was a stand down in the context of the tariffs that Donald Trump initiated. China reciprocated with their own stand down. But again, keep in mind, China only escalated because the U.S. escalated. It wasn't like China decided, I'm going to have a trade war. It wasn't that. China said all the way through, this is a pointless endeavor. This does nothing to nobody. Trade wars help no one. So when Trump climbed down, Xi Jinping climbed down. By the way, also Dan Kovalik. And not just Dan Kovalik. Before I even show this video, Dan Kovalik, I hit him up just to check on him because I check on him from time to time to make sure he's doing okay. And he sent me, he said, hey, did you get the news? What news? I'm always into news, Dan. You know, I do news for a living. What's the news? And he said, I am defending Gustavo Petro against right here. Look, yes, I'm excited. I'm always excited when my guests are doing things. I have another guest that's doing something fantastic. I can't expose what he is doing because he told me not to. But next time he comes on the show next week, hopefully he will be willing to disclose himself what it is. But in this case, I can't disclose. Dan is going to be on the show today, and he is going to be talking about this. Gustavo Petro. Indeed, Bernie Moreno's threat has come true. My children, my wife, and I have been added to the OFAC list. My lawyer, in my defense, will be Dan effing Kovalik from the United States of America. My guest, Dan Kovalik, will be defending Gustavo Petro. Yes, I'm proud of that, even though I have nothing to do with it. Fighting drug trafficking for decades and effectively has brought me to this measure from the government of the society that helped so much to curb their cocaine consumption. A complete paradox, but not a step back and never on our knees. So Dan Kovalik will be defending the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro. And he will be on the show today to talk about it. That is fantastic. That is fantastic. And shout out to Dan. Shout out to him. Shout out to him. There's not much else to say about that one until he comes on and have a conversation about it himself. I want to show this clip of Xi Jinping in China just to give the idea of the icy reception that took place between these two. Now, Donald Trump, trying to be a showman, is trying to egg on Xi Jinping to show a little bit of levity. Hey, I'm here with my good friend, Xi Jinping, great negotiator, strong guy. And Xi Jinping is having none of it. Now, I have been told more than one occasion by people who either live in China or have a close relationship with the country itself that the United States is into this kind of flashy, showy stuff. China is not. They're not about dramatics. And so when Donald Trump is doing this, you kind of see this, right, on its face. Look at this. Look at the look on Xi Jinping's face. He doesn't want to be here. He doesn't want to be a part of this. I'm not even sure he likes Trump all that much.
Mr. President, the President of the People's Republic of China.
Good to meet you. Great pleasure to see you again.
That look is priceless. That look is priceless. God damn, why am I here? Why do I have to be here? Why do I have to be shaking this guy's hand? Why is this guy looking at me? Why is this guy talking to me? Why are all these cameras out here? It's like he does not seem happy in this moment.
Good to see you again. Me too.
He's like, good to see you. Me too. Me too. Me too. Can we get this shit over with? Me too. God damn it. Why are you holding my hand this long? I just want to leave. I just want to leave.
And we're going to have a very successful meeting, I have no doubt. But he's a very tough negotiator. That's not good. We know each other well.
Can you imagine? You don't want to be here. Just the look on his face. He's so unhappy. He's so unhappy. Like it's not even. I often tell you I'm very transparent. Like if I like a guest, I like a guest. If I don't, I don't. Like meaning, however I appear, oftentimes that's kind of what's taking place. That takes that to a new level. He does not want to be here. And Donald Trump is like, he's a good negotiator. I know him very well. And I can imagine him thinking to himself, dude, you know nothing about me. You know nothing about my country. I don't even want to be here. I don't even like you. I am here just to take pictures. As soon as I can get off the stage, the better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He is not a happy camper. He is not a happy camper. And Trump seems to be doing everything in his power to make this look as if there's something there, when really it's just contempt.
President, do you plan to sign a trade deal today?
Could be. I think we'll have a great understanding. We have a great relationship. We've always had a great relationship.
I have to be honest with you. I don't know why Trump does this. Like, I'm confused by this. I get Xi Jinping. I get him totally, right? You decided to have a trade war with me. You have thousands of weapons pointed at my country. Your Department of War, that lunatic, the alcoholic, has gone out and asked the other countries whether they are ready to have a war with China. You have military in Taiwan. Like, this is the context, right? This is the reality of things that are taking place right now that the United States is effectively doing. China is not encroaching on U.S. borders. The U.S. is encroaching on Chinese borders. All right. And you stand there and you act as if this is my great friend. This is my great buddy. We know each other so well. Yes, we're going to come to some kind of terms. Hopefully, ideally, we're going to come to some kind of trade deal. And Xi Jinping is like, can I get off the stage now? Why does he do that? like, why even bother doing that? The guy clearly dislikes you. He has all the reason in the world to dislike you. And you are acting as if we are just the greatest of friends. Who are you posing for? Who are you putting this act on for? It's just very strange. I don't quite get it. But he does it all the time. He does it with Putin. He does it with Xi Jinping. He does it pretty much with anybody else he's talking to in this way. It's just very strange. He doesn't really do it with the Europeans, though. He humiliates the Europeans. Like, he goes out of its way to make the Europeans look like assholes. And one leader after the next, Trump brings them to the White House and humiliates them. Putin, not so much. Xi Jinping, not so much. It's just very strange. Just very, very strange. But yeah, it's a performance. It's a total performance. And Xi Jinping wasn't having any of it. And regardless of all the dramatics and all the optics, all the bellicosity before the meeting and everything else, when he got down to brass tacks, Trump gets nothing. Trump gets nothing. He gets less than nothing because he has to effectively backtrack on the tariffs and everything else that he put out. And Xi Jinping, not at all, not a step back, completely implacable, doesn't change one policy at all on the issue of rare earths, which is the main issue that the United States is concerned about, because apparently the bulk of our military equipment is either sourced through China or has some kind of third-party component that comes from China. It's a big deal. It's an issue. And it's the issue that wasn't getting solved. Nothing in the sense of the trade, meaning we've gone back to stalemate. We've gone back to status quo. It's not a trade deal. We've gone back to status quo. Now, Trump mentioned the whole Ukraine thing before going into the conflict. Before going into the meeting. Well, nothing got done on that either. We talked about it. We had a conversation about it. And we said we were going to work together on it. That means nothing. That means nothing. That means nothing at all. In fact, I'll let you hear what Trump said himself. He went what's funny about it, after saying, yeah, we talked about it and we're going to work together on it. But he then turned around and says, yeah, sometimes you just have to let both sides fight. There's not much you can do about it. This was the audio clip coming out. I guess, I don't know if this is Air Force One. I don't know where they took this audio, but this is Trump talking about it. The audio is not that great, but Lord Bebo, doing God's work on Twitter, added the subtitles.
So Ukraine, it came up?
Yeah, it did come up. Ukraine came up very strongly. We talked about it for a long time, and we're both going to work together to see if we can get something done. We agree the sides are, locked in, fighting, and sometimes you have to let them fight, I guess. Crazy. But he's going to help us, and we're going to work together on Ukraine. There's not a lot more we can do. The oil, he's been buying oil from Russia for a long time. It takes care of a big part of China. And, I can say India's been very good on that.
Sometimes you just got to let them fight. There's not really much we can do about it. Just got to let them fight. And then he said, it's crazy. Then he said, it's crazy. Now, mind you, the guy who's saying that we just got to let him fight, hey man, it's crazy, is murdering Venezuelans left and right and was literally paying for a genocide. But it's crazy that a war that the U.S. kicked off by overthrowing the government of Yanukovych, that it's crazy for Russia to defend its sovereignty. You are encroaching on Russian territory. You've knocked over a country that was on the Russian border. And if you go back to William Burns, it was obviously very clear that this was a red line and this was going to provoke conflict. And yet we did it nonetheless. Trump can say all that he wants, that this is Joe Biden's war. Donald Trump is the one at this point who's selling weapons. Donald Trump is the one who hasn't ended the war. Donald Trump is the one who can't accept the deal because it's on Russian terms. As I keep pointing out, losers don't get to dictate terms. And so This is Trump's war. Full stop. Trump is passing sanctions. Trump is trying to get other countries to stop using Russian oil. Trump has decided to have a war on Russian infrastructure in regards to their oil infrastructure in order to try to get some level of leverage. This is Trump's war. So the idea that Trump is trying to third party this is nonsense. Complete nonsense. But my guest is here. And I always enjoy talking to him. My man, Dr. Wilmer Leon. How you doing this morning? You doing okay this morning?
Man, I'm here. The rest is up to me.
Well, I appreciate that. Dr. Wilmer Leon. He is radio host, political scientist, nationally syndicated columnist, host of Connecting the Dots on YouTube and Inside the Issues on Sirius Radio. My man, I'm so happy to talk to you. Yeah, usually I miss that last part and I have to say, Dr. Leon, what is the name of that show on Sirius? I made it my mission to look that up this morning. It was like, okay, what is the name of that show? Because I'm going to write that down in my calendar.
Mission accomplished.
I'm glad you could join me, man. You doing okay?
Doing great.
Good. So Russia, let's go to Russia for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
They have recently been unleashing what people have deemed as doomsday weapons. Doomsday weapons. So of course they have the Orezhnik, which is a terrifying weapon in and of itself, with nuclear capability associated with it. They have the Saramat, I think that's called Satan in English, which gets across kind of the level of weapon that is. They unleashed, let's just call it, what is it? Buzhnerschnik, something like that. Yeah, I'm butchering the name.
Well, no, I think that's the test. That the Poseidon was. That's where isn't that where the test took place?
Well, Poseidon is the one that just came out. That was the new one that came out. That was the new doomsday weapon that came out. But there was a weapon that came out before that, started with a B code, like the Buzhnerschnik.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Like
Berezhnik.
Thank you.
Berezhnik test. Right. You're right.
Yes. That thing has a nuclear motor, could fly pretty much forever, has the potential for nuclear tip weaponry also, can evade any missile defense system because it can go sideways, vertical, horizontal, and it can effectively loiter and fly around the world and hit pretty much any target that it wants to hit. Now, people were calling that a doomsday weapon, and that's not really a doomsday weapon. The Poseidon is a true doomsday weapon. That weapon apparently has also nuclear reactor associated with it. In fact, this is a slight video of it. Hopefully, I don't ding for this. I got ding for it last time.
Nuclear motor.
Yeah, it's like a nuclear motor. And from my understanding, it even has the potential to create tsunamis. This thing is launched from a sub. And again, a terrifying weapon. A terrifying weapon. Why is Russia releasing all of these doomsday weapons right now?
I think Russia wants to send a very clear message to, people keep saying Donald Trump, but he's not the one making the decisions here. I think Russia is sending a message to Steve Bannon. They're sending a message to Russell Vought, to Steve Miller. Don't mess with me. It won't be good for you. In these conversations, I don't know if you remember when Mike Tyson was on the airplane and the guy was kicking the back of his seat, and Tyson was asking the guy, "Hey, can you stop?" And the guy kept kicking his seat. And then Tyson came over the top of that seat and commenced to kicking his hind parts. they had to carry that guy off the plane on a stretcher. And Tyson proceeded to his destination. We go back to this point often, but because I think it's relevant to the basis of the analysis, and that is the world has changed. It's not changing. It has changed. And the United States is no longer the unipolar hegemon. But the problem is, I guess the fax machine is down in the Oval Office because they're not getting the facts. And I use that technology as a metaphor for their mindset. So, new neighbors have moved onto the block, and you might want to take them some cookies and welcome them to the neighborhood instead of continuing to try to have parties in their backyard, because they're not going to stand for it. So this is it's old wine in old bottles. So I think this is Vlad taking his shirt off and flexing. Oh, nice triceps you got there, Vlad.
Yeah. It's like as he rides a bear, right? Yeah, right.
But we're not getting the message.
It's it's wild. That weapon is a nuclear weapon that
it's nuclear. Well, it's nuclear powered and warhead capable.
And nuclear warhead capable, and capable of creating a tsunami to effectively wash over whatever its target is.
Right.
So London, Stormer better watch his ass, right? Like that, like the stuff that they're creating. And he even pointed out, like, hey, the nuclear reactor for this, because obviously it's like a miniature nuclear reactor, can be used on the moon. So it's like, we have civilian usage for this also. Don't mess with us. Like, they continuously are asserting this idea of don't mess with us. You keep getting closer to our borders. You keep, Macron talking about sending French legionnaires into Ukraine.
There must be diseased soldiers, legionnaires' disease.
Yeah. Well, those people are going to die. I mean, they kind of made it very clear. He's like, look, you better talk to their wives and families and explain to them why those soldiers are sacrificed.
Why they're not coming back.
Exactly. But I guess my point is, it's like Russia's not doing this for no reason, right? It's not like they just woke up and say, hey, let's just create these doomsday weapons that are terrifying to anybody that's paying attention to the fact that they're creating terrifying science fiction weapons. If this was in Star Wars, people would be like, whoa, that's a hell of a weapon. This is not science fiction. Like, this is like sci-fi tech that they have materialized into physical matter reality, and that they have tested, shown that it works, and is now ready to put into action against other countries on Earth, not against aliens, against other countries. That it's an astonishing thing. And as you point out, the fax isn't in. Is it that the fax isn't in, or is that a hegemon has a very difficult time coming to grips with the fact that they are not untouchable? Like, this is not the United States of the 1980s, right? This is not, or even the 1990s.
Well, this is not the Roman Empire. This is not the Greek Empire. This is not the Ottoman Empire. This is not the British Empire. All empires run their course.
Yes.
There's not one in the history of the world that hasn't. So the first problem is somehow their arrogance has convinced them that the American empire is unique and different from all of its predecessors. Newsflash. That's what all the predecessors thought about their predecessors. But if any of the Western media is to be believed, one of the things that stands out to me clearest is the folks that I mentioned and probably a plethora of others whose names I don't know. They have convinced themselves of one of two things or both. Russia won't use it. Russia can't use it. Why? Because up to this point, President Putin and President Xi have been incredibly measured, and Khomeini in Iran, they have been incredibly measured in their responses because they are responsible individuals. So they're confusing "don't mess with me" with "just because I haven't kicked your ass doesn't mean I can't kick your ass and doesn't mean I won't kick your ass." Yeah. They don't understand that. So, and I base part of this on this continued mantra that Russia wants to take over Europe, and Russia is weak because Russia hasn't, as in Trump's words, finished the job, which is what he told Netanyahu to do in occupied Palestine, hasn't finished the job in Ukraine. But what that fails to appreciate is Putin never wanted this in the first place.
Right.
And he has been moving slowly and cautiously and measuredly, I'll make up a word, measuredly, or in a measured manner, because he's trying to send a message. Talk to me. Sign on the dotted line, and we're done. But that message isn't being received. So they think, oh, this guy he's not gonna do that. And then you're the drunk at the bar. And you keep tapping the guy, or you keep nudging the guy next to you, and the guy next to you saying, "Hey man, stop drinking and stop nudging me." And then all of a sudden you're knocked out on the floor and they're carrying you out the bar.
It's like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah, you did. You got knocked out.
You just hit me for no reason. The hegemony is an issue, and all empires suffer from the same disease in this case. No, I agree with you on that. We often.
Oh, one more point.
Go for it.
Full spectrum dominance is another problem with the American mindset. You can take this back to Tony Blinken, and I can't remember which one of those swamp monsters was the one that came up with the idea. I don't think it was
Brzezinski.
It might have been. I don't know. I can't remember. But this idea of full spectrum dominance. It's not going to work. 1 + 1 does not equal 7. I don't care how many times you tell me and how many times you tell me how smart you are. 1 + 1 does not equal 7. And that's what they keep trying to get people to believe.
One of the things, has it been a mistake that Putin has been mismeasured? Now, let me explain what I mean by that. Because there's been a lot of criticism aimed at Putin on this. Even in Russia, apparently.
Yes.
There's been criticism aimed at Putin. And it's funny, in Russia, they don't really aim it at Putin, they aim it at his policy. They make a distinction between the man versus the policy. But either way, right, it's being aimed at Putin, saying he's too tame, he's too mild, he's too measured, he doesn't have it in him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is it, if you are looking at something strategically and you are a measured person, meaning I don't want to end the world, And I know that some of these other people are lunatics, and they may actually end the world. I don't want to do that. I'm a measured person. I'm practical. Is it impractical for a practical person to be too practical? And I know that sounds weird, but if I know that my practicality is being taken as weakness, and my pragmatism is being taken as he doesn't have it in him, and you allow yourself to be pushed into a corner where you have to take a maximalist response because you've been so practical all along the way, is that really practical? I mean, for some of the people who say, look, Putin needs to be a bit of a hard ass on X or Y in order to prevent himself from being pushed into Z, because Z is the end of the world. Give me a take on that. I mean, because that's what some of the criticism that's being leveled at Putin has been doing. Now, let's put that in context. Russia is winning the war.
Russia has won the war.
Yes, and the policies that Putin has effectively gone with of, I'm going to isolate this to Ukraine. I'm not going to expand this beyond, I'm going to accept the slights. I'm going to accept all this stuff because ultimately we're going to win in Ukraine. So let's put that in context. But is there something to be said, though, for other countries, let's say NATO, for example, and a larger war that may be on the horizon, that not being a bit more bullish is allowing himself to be pushed into the corner where Russia will have to take a maximalist response at some point?
Let me first say, I can't give a definitive answer to that question because there are obviously elements of this reality that I have no knowledge of.
Yeah.
So I need to provide that context. This to a certain degree, as soon as you framed the question, I thought about Muhammad Ali and Ernie Terrell. And for those that don't remember or are not old enough to have experienced this, Ernie Terrell was a boxer who was friends with Ali. And when Ali converted to Islam, Ernie Terrell refused to call him Muhammad Ali and continued to call him Cassius Clay. And when they met in the ring, Ali could have knocked him out probably round 3, but decided he was going to teach Ernie Terrell a lesson.
What's my name?
What's my name? And just commenced and continued to pound that behind. Bang, what's my name? Bang, what's my name? So if you take a principled position and you decide I am wedded to my principle, and you are not going to move me off of my spot. You are not going, I'm holding this ground, literally or figuratively. You're not moving me off my corner. This is my corner. And also because I know, because I have a much longer view and a clearer understanding of history than you do. My country won World War II, not yours. You were merely the benefactor, United States. You were merely the benefactor of our sacrifice. I know what this means. I know what this looks like. I don't have members of my family because of this. I'm not going to let you take me there. I'm going to stay wedded to my position because my position is a principled position. And also because I know as they say, don't think because I'm not doing it, I can't do it. But I'm not going to do it right now because it's a lose-lose. One of the other elements I think to this is the Russian economy. Putin understands what a full-fledged war does to your economy. And right now, his economy is doing quite well, contrary to what the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal want to tell you. The Russian economy is doing quite well. So he's winning on so many other fronts. And I don't mean to sound like Charlie Sheen. Winning. He's winning on so many other fronts that if you move me off of my position, that could jeopardize the progress I'm making elsewhere. So I'm just going to stand here and continue to pummel your behind until you acquiesce and surrender. That, and one of the other missiles, just quickly to go back to the missile conversation, the Kinjal.
Yes. Hypersonic, yeah.
The Kinjal.
Terrifying weapon.
When I think I had this readout correct. When Biden sent, I can't remember which carrier it was, into the Mediterranean, as I understand the readout, Putin called Biden and said, Joe, what are you doing? And why are you doing this? These people don't scare. And oh, by the way, I can sink that thing from the Black Sea with the Kinjals that are on our, whatever their fighters are.
Yeah.
I can sink that thing from here. So what are you doing? See, to me, it's that kind of mind. And I go back again to the point of Putin has, and again, President Xi, they have a much longer view of history based upon the thousands of years of history and culture that their respective countries have. And so he's saying, ain't nothing new under the sun. All you're doing is replacing war elephants with F-16s. It's just the technology of the time. But the outcome is the same.
Oh, I disagree with you on that. The outcome is very different. Like a war elephant. Like when Rome, when Hannibal crossed the mountains.
The world as they knew it at the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, there's no way to win this. Is the difference?
No.
Like we all die. Everybody dies.
I get your point, and you're right on that point. But I was thinking more in a more limited context. That was the dominant weapon of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, this is just we're so far behind. And see, I think that's one of the other messages that he wants to send. You are so far behind this. When the United States decided to allow these other treaties to lapse, Russia didn't sit on its laurels, and no, obviously they went right back to the drawing board, right back to the laboratory, and they went right back to the library and did their homework. And now the test is coming, and they're showing you, oh, we're ready for the test. We've studied.
Yeah.
You haven't.
And the idea that they made this argument that Russia was Nigeria with snow, or that they were a gas station masquerading as a country. And they're like, okay, here's the Sarmat. Here's a Kimzal. Here's another terrifying sci-fi weapon that can create tsunamis underwater. Here's this other weapon that can fly around the world for 14 to 15 hours or longer. Like, this is not stuff that we have. Like, this is stuff that is just,
and see, I think
this is stuff that would be in a science fiction movie, and people would be like, whoa, that's a hell of a weapon.
I think there's another element to this, and there are, I use the term multivariate equation quite often because I think in a lot of these conversations, folks in too many instances are looking for an answer, and there's not an answer. There are a number of factors that are contributing to the answer. And so when you look, one would wonder, as Russia has used hypersonics that we don't have into Ukraine, some would sit back and say, well, wait a minute, where's this coming from? And wow. But I think the other element of this is Donald Trump and his swamp monsters, they don't care about the people.
What do you mean, in Ukraine? Absolutely.
They don't care about the people anywhere.
Oh, well,
they don't. Part of this, I think, implicit in our conversation is, well, damn, a whole lot of people are going to die. A whole lot of stuff is going to get blown up. You might even end the world. Their ego and their arrogance, they almost have reverted back to the divine right of kings. You know, we're here because God put us here. And we're somehow we're ordained by God to wreak this havoc on the world. But their calculus is much different than our calculus, and they don't care. Hence the shutdown. People in the United States going to food shelters that don't have food to shelter. Mm-hmm. They don't care. You and I are merely widgets. We're widgets. I'm not even going to say pawns.
So we don't even rise to that level. Pawn can be a dangerous thing, man. Pawn can be a dangerous thing.
No, you're just an indescribable reference to an imaginable thing, a widget. So I think that has also infected their psychosis, or their psychology causing their psychosis. These were some sick, I'm not going to say that on. These are some sick boys, man. Some sick boys.
You can say it. These some sick motherfuckers. Go ahead and say it.
Well, that's true.
They are.
That's true.
I always call them psychopaths. I use the term in the most literal sense of the word. They, when people have this conversation about Ukraine, for example, and they would say the flag wavers, I hate the flag wavers more. It is very difficult for me to get across how much I hate these people, because for me it's like, A, you're dishonest about how this war started. B, you're dishonest about why Russia went in. I mean, A, after you knock over a government, the government becomes illegitimate in and of itself, and that government was used as a proxy. Ukraine has lost over 1 million people, full stop. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we need to keep giving them weapons to fight a losing war. What? What are you talking about?
And
right?
Weapons we don't have.
And weapons we don't have. And so it's like, so you want to keep pushing people who are being snatched off the streets, meaning Ukraine itself wants to end this war. Meaning, if you're talking about the Ukrainians on the ground, the overwhelming majority say end the war. Even if you give up territory, end the war, just stop it. And you get the flag waver saying, keep it going. They're not going to die. They're talking about, hey, you send other Ukrainians to go and die, to get snatched off the street, thrown onto the front with a potato and a rifle, and send them out to get eaten, to get thrown into a Russian wood chipper. That's what they're talking about when they're saying send those people in to die, because that's what's going to happen. Those people are just out there dying. You have 10,500 surrounded as we speak in Kupiansk, and what's the other one? Pokrovsk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those people will most likely either get shot in the back. They're most likely not going to be given permission to surrender. So they're going to die. And the flag wavers will continue to wave their flags and continue to say they must keep fighting.
Thank you, Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham is the
poster girl. I'm sorry, poster boy.
Is the, what do you call the majorette? He's the majorette leading the parade.
Yeah.
Because he's on record. The Ukrainians need to fight to the last Ukrainian. That's easy for you to say, ma'am. You don't have a cat in this fight. You don't have a cat in this fight.
Well, he has money involved, apparently.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But How can you listen to someone like Lindsey Graham, who told us very clearly Donald Trump is a racist, xenophobic bigot? And
He
told,
said that, did he?
huh? Oh,
He said that.
When Lindsey was in the race and Donald Trump had given out Lindsey Graham's cell phone number on the internet. Oh man, no, he said Donald Trump is evil, and that I don't think he said he was a madman, but no, you can before we get off the air, you can look that one up. He was very clear.
I believe you.
He was very clear. Donald Trump is a narcissistic, racist, xenophobic bigot. Lindsey, you go from telling me that to riding around with him in a golf cart? Oh, man.
Politics, man. Politics. My mom used to say, I never want you to be a lawyer. I never want you to be a politician. That's why. Why. Yeah, they don't care. It's like, and it's always stunning to me. And when I always talk to my mom, when I talk to my mom about this stuff, I often have to tell her, you must accept that human beings don't matter when you're doing foreign policy. And that always blows her mind. Like, what do you mean human beings don't matter?
Right.
They don't factor into it in as much as what you can use for propaganda purposes.
They're obstacles.
Right. Yes. Or they are pawns. Like where you could say, oh my God, look at all these people that are dying. It's either that or they just don't matter.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to wrap your head around. That was one of the hardest things to wrap my head around when I got into this. It's like, okay, you just have to accept people don't matter in the context of this stuff. And you have to make a separation between your analysis of it for the fact that people don't matter while maintaining the fact that they do. And you have to keep these things separate in the way that you operate. Yeah, it's a...
part of that, I think, it manifests itself or is reflected in, I think, the difference between the United States foreign policy group and the diplomats in China, the diplomats, Sergei Lavrov is a diplomat.
He's a hell of a diplomat.
As far as I know, that's all the guy's ever done professionally. Wang Yi is a diplomat. In China, if you want to get into their foreign service, usually you study it in college, and then you get accepted into their school of diplomacy, and you spend years learning the nuances of Chinese foreign policy. Lil Marco got the job as a pacifier from Donald Trump. Lil Marco don't know nothing about nothing. But he's a Secretary of State.
But is the difference being empire?
Yes.
Like I always make the argument that from the standpoint of an empire or from the standpoint of a hegemon, we don't really care.
Right.
Like meaning it's not, Marco Rubio doesn't go into negotiation with the idea of trying to understand, the nuances of the Russian position. He's not there trying to understand the nuances of how the war started and all of this other. He doesn't care about that. Right. We have objectives. And we have objectives that we need to accomplish by hook or by crook. That's it. And so it's not like, I always make the argument, you tell the truth to end the war. You be dishonest to start a war. And if the person or if the group or the country is being dishonest, that means they have no interest in ending a conflict or ending a war.
Right.
When Rubio is going into those meetings, Rubio is not like, I'm trying to deeply understand the Russian position and where they're coming from so we can find an honest way to make ends meet. He is trying to affect U.S. policy with the idea of maintaining hegemony and primacy around the globe.
He's trying to impose.
Is that the difference?
Yes. He's trying to impose U.S. policy. The traditional, well, I say traditional, let's just say, I'll use this number randomly, the last 30 years,
Mhm.
The U.S. position in negotiation is you will acquiesce to our demands and then we'll talk.
Yes.
And the world has changed. And because listen, you know, and I'm not directing this to you because you do. Listen to the way, if you listen to MSNBC, if you listen to CNN, if you read the New York Times, they always tell you the problem in Ukraine is Putin. And that and the problem in Ukraine is basically Putin won't surrender. That's what they're telling you. And they're ignoring the reality that when you've won the fight, you don't surrender.
Right.
And they also ignore the fact that there was a window, an open window of time and space to negotiate this thing. And the United States made conscious decision after conscious decision to continue the fight, expecting that Putin would fold. And now they found out, oh, this guy is serious.
He ain't folding.
He ain't folding. You were right. It is Joe Biden's war, but Donald Trump has become the warrior. And he's fighting a losing battle. You remember it was April of 22, I think, when Putin held up the piece of paper and said, oh, we got an agreement.
Istanbul, yeah.
We have an agreement. I got it right here. And Boris Johnson went in and told Zelensky, no, partner. No, you ain't signing that thing.
Nope.
The West will not allow you. And so Putin said, okay, go on out there. Mess around and find out. I'm about this life, homie. I'm about this life.
He doesn't have a choice.
No.
I've argued this with people who've come on the show. It was like, oh, Putin should be, especially like hardcore anti-war people. And again, I am an anti-war guy, right?
Right.
But I am not, I guess I'm not a pacifist in that sense.
See,
in the way
you can be anti-war. That's an ideological position. We're talking a real conflict here.
yes.
Yeah,
Real war phenomena.
yeah.
Like if I don't do this, meaning you are running a government, you have a hostile military organization that is encroaching on your territory. That hostile military organization has overthrown a government on your border and has filled it with weapons and Nazis, a group that you had to beat back, 50 years ago, 60 years ago.
Right.
They are surrounding you militarily.
And
What
they
do you do?
promised to you that they would not.
Yes, there's that. And they've knocked over Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, etc. Meaning they have gone around the world knocking over governments. And your government is now on the border of one of the countries that they've just taken over. What do you do? What do you do? It's a hard choice.
That's
right?
why in international law, and this is one of the fundamental elements in international law, there's a difference between aggression and defense. There's a difference between murder and self-defense.
Right.
And that's not only in American jurisprudence, that's international law. I have the right to defend myself. That's one of the fundamental elements of sovereignty, is the right to govern and defend yourself within a defined geographic space. And the United States decided it was going to encroach. Another part of this that folks just seem to forget. When the Ukraine initially sent like 80,000 troops to the border, to the Russian border.
Yes.
This was before the conflict started. Nobody seems to remember this other than the two of us and maybe Garland. The three of
Garland remember.
the three of us. Nobody wants to talk about Zelensky sent about 80,000 troops to the border, to the Russian border. And Putin called Biden and said, Joe, you better get them boys off my border, man, or my response is going to be asymmetrical and disproportionate. And Biden said, ooh, wow, Vlad, I wasn't expecting that response.
I thought you were going to be pragmatic.
And Biden called Zelensky and said, back that thing up. Am I right?
No, you're right.
And I want to say that was April or May of, when did this thing start? 22?
Well, people keep forgetting that, and that was one of the most aggravating things in the world when this war was starting. They would say, all of these Russians are on the Ukrainian border. And we would
they were on the Russian border. They were on the Russian side of the border.
Right. But they would ignore the fact that you had all of the Ukrainian troops also on the border.
Right.
And it's like, God, man, one of the things of working at this station, it was eye-opening, because it's like, what people get wrong about us is that we focus on world news, especially at the radio station. You're looking at news around the world.
Right.
And so it's not like you're just looking at the U.S. media in the sense of New York Times, Washington Post, etc. You're looking at Russian media, Indian media. You're looking at media in Iran. You're looking at media all over. It gives you a different take on the globe.
You're not sitting in an echo chamber.
No, you're sitting on the moon looking at events. And so you would know, hey, there are a lot of Ukrainian troops on the border of Russia.
Why are they there?
Responding, have been troops at the border. Now, U.S. media just says, all of these Russian troops on the border.
Right.
It's very frustrating.
Well, and again, Russia invaded Ukraine. You know, I took issue with that term. I understand what invade means, but I took issue with that term because it was usually being used in an offensive context.
Yes.
And so for a while, I was making the point, no, this was not an invasion. This was a defensive operation. But I finally got tired of trying to hold the flag on that hill.
Yeah, that's a lot of words.
Yeah. So, okay, you want to call it an invasion? Okay, call it an invasion. I ain't gonna argue with that. And the other thing was, because I got hammered on this one. When the thing started in February, I was on the show saying this will be over in about 2 months.
Were you?
Yeah.
Were you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was on my XM show saying this is a big nothing burger and this will be over in about 2 months. So we get to the end of April, first part of May, and folks start calling me saying, hey, Wilmer, you said this was going to be over in 2 months. And I said, well, I was right and I was wrong. I was right because in the middle of April, Putin held up a piece of paper and said, we have an agreement to end this thing. I was wrong because I never anticipated that the United States would send Boris Johnson in to blow up the peace agreement.
Yeah.
I didn't think the United States was that stupid. So, and so when I started explaining that, then folks were, oh, we didn't realize. Yeah, because y'all ain't, to your point, y'all aren't looking at the satellite photography, looking at the entire landscape, understanding what's really going on and why. And that's the other thing, is the why. And you got to go all the way back to 1991 and James Baker and Gorbachev trying to negotiate the reunification of Germany.
Now, 1 inch to the east. Yeah.
And Gorbachev, we'll say this now, the sucker that he was,
Yeah.
went,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And God, man, I always get hammered for this myself when I say I like Gorbachev because I think we need dreamers. But God, he was a sucker.
He was, and I say that. I hope Russians don't appear on my doorstep angry because I called him a sucker. I mean, as
They won't.
respectfully as I can say it, but
They won't. They hate his guts.
No, I know.
Every Russian that I met hate his guts. Everyone. I mean,
Right.
I was on the radio show, and I have to end it on this, but
Okay.
I was on the radio show one day, and I said something like, "Yeah, I like Gorbachev, et cetera," even though he got hammered. And in my ear, I could hear my what is his name, the radio
Dmitry?
engineer saying, "F that guy." He just said, "Shut up, F that guy."
I'm surprised you didn't get called into the other office.
No, he was like, F that guy.
have a conversation.
Look, I put it in caveats. I mean, because my reason is very specific. It has nothing to do with his foreign policy. He fucked up foreign policy wise.
Right.
It has to do with this idea of we can have a better world
Mhm.
and a willingness to reach out
Right.
to
And
have
talk.
the better world. It's kind of like Strange New Worlds in Star Trek, where Pike is trying to reach out to the Romulans and he gets it wrong. He gets it massively wrong. And the Federation just gets hammered in an attack. But he tried. We need something other than cynical people. And he was that guy, even though he got it wrong. So people hate me for saying that because, they hate Gorbachev.
Can I make a quick point about the shutdown?
Yes, please.
Folks, I think we're in day 30 in the United States as it
I thought
relates.
it was beyond day 30. I thought we were beyond a month.
Uh,
I could be wrong. I'm not there.
Oh,
So
well, if we are, whatever the day is. And one of the elements that's missing, I believe, in the analysis is you've got to understand that what they called the big, beautiful bill, which was nothing but, it says here, government shutdown day 30 impact.
Okay.
That this so-called big, beautiful bill was nothing more than a horrendous money grab. It was the largest transference of wealth from the poor and the working class to the 1%. And if you start your analysis understanding that, you'll then have a better understanding of what the Republicans are trying to protect. They're trying to protect the transference of wealth from the poor and the middle class to the 1%. And I don't say this as a Democrat. I don't say this as a Republican. Because I'm neither.
It's just true.
But if you don't understand that, and the other thing you need to understand is when the Democrats say, and they're not saying this enough, the reason they can't pass a clean continuing resolution and then go to the negotiating table to work out the health insurance issues is because they can't trust Donald Trump. Once they relinquish this piece or this element of leverage, the playing field will not be level.
Mm-hmm.
And they understand that. And to their credit and to my surprise, they're holding their ground.
Yeah.
And I'm shocked because I thought by now Hakeem Jeffries would be in a corner in a fetal position with his thumb in his mouth and a blankie over his head.
Well, not to say he's not, but they are holding the ground.
So understand that it's the largest transference of wealth from the poor and the middle class to the working class in the history of the country. They've stolen. It's a bank robbery. It's what it is.
That's an understatement. Dr. Wilmer Leon, You are fantastic. You are a gentleman and a scholar.
Man,
and I
you
always
leave it out
appreciate
for it.
when
That's
you
it.
join. Dr.
Thanks, man. I
Wilmer
appreciate
Leon. He's a radio host, political scientist, nationally syndicated columnist, host of Connecting the Dots on YouTube and Inside the Issues on Sirius Radio. All right. I see my man in the background, the legend Carl Jha. How you doing, Carl? You doing okay today?
All right. I'm good, Jamar. How are you, sir?
I'm doing okay. How you feel, man? You doing okay? Like you feel better? I know you said you weren't feeling well.
I'm doing a lot better than before. I think the last time I was in your show, you caught me on my last good moment. And right after, I think the day after was my birthday, and I've been sick ever since. 49 sucks. I don't recommend to anybody.
You're 49?
Stay. Yeah, I'm 49. I'm 49. I've been sick since my birthday, so I want my 48 back. And I recommend people just skip 49, go straight to 50. Forget about 49. Just.
So I had
go
my
to
birthday
50.
August 31st. I turned 48. Which is like, you want your 48 back? I want my 40. I want my 30 back. I want my 35 or whatever that number is. It's funny. Ted Raw was like, I don't advise getting old, man. And I was like, dude, too late. You should have told me that like 10, 15 years earlier. Yeah. I didn't realize
you get to call me big brother, sir.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I want to be you when I grow up. Look, I know. I would tell you I have gotten sick every trip that I've taken, with the exception of coming here. And maybe it's because Indonesia has all of these like they don't really have it in the States, but they have like these like vitamin packs where it's like these vitamin C packs that you put in the water. And I was like down in these little bottles of vitamin C and stuff like that. And I got to be honest, I was drinking that stuff just as a drink, just because it was really good. I don't know if it was that where I was so fortified with vitamins, minerals from whatever the hell I was taking.
Vitamins.
Yeah. But usually I get sick every time I take a trip. Every trip, when I got to Albania, when I got to Malaysia, when I got to Indonesia, I had a cold every time. Never failed. So it's some being in that little tube flying through the sky, and you're stuck with all those strangers inhaling their fumes and farts, and the stuff just kind of gets on you. But I'm glad you're here, man.
Not spring chickens anymore, sir.
Yeah, there's that too, right? There's that too. But Carl, I'm glad you could join me. And just for the audience, Carl Jha, host of Silk and Steel podcasts focused on China's surrounding regions and the history, culture, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Jha. You can find his podcast on Twitter at Steel Silk In, and you can subscribe and support their podcast on patreon.com/Silk and Steel. Carl goes through the history of China, 5,000 effing years. That is an impressive task, Carl. I respect the hell out of that because it gives you a focus. Like, oftentimes when I do this show, I don't know what to talk about, especially when I think it's because when you're covering world news, there's so much of it. And then you have to figure out, okay, well, what do you want to talk about? Okay, I don't know. Like, it's hard to figure out, okay, what's important? What does the audience care about? If you can isolate it and say,
Jermar, we have Trump. We have President Trump. He's like a gift that keeps on giving. You can never be running out of ideas with Trump around.
Talking about him. And that's why I brought you on the show, right? Xi Jinping and Donald Trump has finally met. The big meeting, right? And Donald Trump was so braggadocious. He was talking all this trash. I don't even know if I'm going to meet Xi Jinping. I don't know if I'm going to meet him. They finally meet, and Trump folds like a cheap suit. I want to show you when they first met, because this is emblematic of probably what took place in that meeting. Donald Trump trying to make it look as if, this is my buddy. We're good friends. I know this man very well. He's a tough negotiator. And Xi Jinping is like, why am I here? Why am I here? Why do I have to stand with this guy? Take a look at this.
Mr. President, the President of the People's Republic of China.
Good to meet you. Great pleasure to see you again.
He's so not happy to see you again.
Me too.
And we're going to have a very successful meeting, I have no doubt.
我肯定我们今天的会有非常成功的会。
But he's a very tough negotiator. That's not good.
He is not happy. He does not want to be there. He does not want to be shaking Donald Trump's hand. And yet he's there nonetheless with Donald Trump, acting as if this is my great buddy. This is my friend. I know this man very well. And I often wonder, why does Trump do that? Or I don't get it. He has missiles aimed at China. He's been trying to rally all of these other countries to attack China, or at the very least to be hostile towards China. He has military in Taiwan, which is China, as we speak. And he's having this conversation like, here's my buddy, my pal, my good friend. I know this man so well. And as I pointed out, Trump got nothing. Give me your analysis of what, let's say, unfolded in that meeting, at the very least what we know ultimately took place.
Well, first of all, Trump is a reality TV show host, so I mean that's all he knows. And now, I was wrong. Last time I was on this show, I said, Jamar, we can always count on Taco Tuesday. I was wrong about that because I forgot about Taco Thursday.
Right.
But you know what? And it's okay because I love tacos. Taco Thursday is just as good as Taco Tuesday. And based on the meeting, or the detail that was leaked out, Trump is gonna remove the 10% so-called fentanyl tax on China, and they're gonna roll back all the semiconductor restrictions that was placed on September 29th, which is called the 50% rule, which is any Chinese company, semiconductor company that's more than 50% owned by a Chinese owner will be placed on a U.S. Entity list, get blacklisted. That was what triggered the Dutch government from seizing control of the semiconductor company Nesperia from its Chinese owner. And in response, China put down more rare earth export control on October 9th. So for China's part, China agreed to roll back all the new rare earth export control that was put in place on October 9th in return for rolling back of the 50% rule and for Trump's getting rid of the fentanyl tax. So what we're looking at right now, tariff on China is now lower than on some of the so-called U.S. allies. You know, like now I think the tariff on Chinese goods is around something like 20%, right? This is actually screwing all the people who made strategies to move production out of China after April 2nd, the so-called Liberation Day, in order to do so-called friendshoring, to move their supply chain elsewhere. And now they're getting caught in the whiplash. And suddenly, all the effort, all the money they invested to move their production out of China is all gone down the drain, because they would have the tariff would have been lower had they just stayed in China. And this is what Trump policy does to people. So forget about decoupling, forget about moving supply chains out of China. Everyone now has learned a hard lesson not to trust Trump. Anything any big plans coming out of his administration, you have to take a wait and see approach to see when the dust finally settles. And this is a big capitulation. I'm sure the MAGA media will pose this as a big win, but this is actually because the rationale for rolling back the 10% fentanyl tax is China promised to work with U.S. on fentanyl problem. But China has always said they would work with U.S. on the fentanyl issue, right? China always held that door open for cooperation. It was U.S. that insisted China was creating the problem. So in essence, this is what we had before when Scott Bessent went to Europe to sign the deal ceasefire. That was a temporary ceasefire. So in September 29th, Trump administration violated that ceasefire. That led China to put the kibosh on the rare earth. And that led a lot of serious problems, because you need rare earth in everything. and then the 50% rule put on Trump administration is having a rippling effect of causing semiconductor shortages. Now, a lot of the automakers, from Japanese to Germans, they're all facing the real possibility of production being shut down because they couldn't get their access on semiconductor because of the U.S. semiconductor restriction on China, particularly that Dutch government seizing of Nesperia. That's causing China to restrict semiconductor supplies coming out of China, and that led to the Honda shutting down their Mexican plant. Germans say that there are weeks. Germans and American automakers said that they're weeks from running out of semiconductors, right? So they're weeks from halting production, and this was a big deal. This is why Trump had to cave, because they realized they screwed up, and now what we have though is things. China still did not lift the rare earth restriction on defense contractors, because that restriction went in effect before October 9th. So Raytheon Martin, they're still going to have problems to find sources for stuff like F-35s and the U.S. missile systems. So China won big. China won bigly this round, and I'm still waiting to see how Fox News is gonna spin this as a Trump victory.
Yeah, it's wild, right? I mean, as I keep pointing out, it wasn't like China initiated a trade war. Trump did. And so anything that China did was reciprocal. It was, we're doing this in response for equality. Basically, we're a peer, and we're not trying to be asymmetrical. We're just equality. You take a step, we take a step. You take a step, we take a step. And so, obviously Donald Trump was doing that stuff because he thought he can get some kind of advantage out of it. And the fact that he couldn't get an advantage, and as you pointed out, it's Thursday, time to have tacos, he backed down so many rungs on that ladder that he had to. He had no cards in this mix. There was no way he could go. He didn't have escalatory dominance. And it became clear he didn't have escalatory dominance. If we think of any other situation where Donald Trump has the advantage or he thinks he has an advantage, he presses it. He didn't have it. So he had to back down. Now, I guess the catch becomes, will he abide by it? And will he continue these little games of poking the dragon? I guess we would have to see. The rare earth thing is a fascinating thing too. No, please answer that. Go for it.
No, I mean, when you say whether he will stop poking the dragon, we know what's going to happen if he keeps on doing that. China is gonna escalate the escalation ladder, and China do have escalation dominance, particularly in the realm of the rare earth. And one of the problem for the Trump administration is that they did not think China will retaliate this hard, because China has, since the first Trump administration, when Trump first put a trade sanction on China, China has been working very, very hard not to escalate the trade war, because China really do not want the trade war. So China have done utmost to practice strategic restraint, not to retaliate or have very muted response. But for the Americans, they took the wrong way. They think that's because, they're weak. We can do whatever we want. They will always back down. But that's not what happened. What happened was China was initially shocked when Trump first placed sanctions back in 2018. So ever since, they have been carefully building up their own indigenous capability, so not to rely on the United States. So they had a good 7-8 years to prepare for eventuality of decoupling if things goes bad to worse. Whereas there has no such preparation on the U.S. hand, because U.S. decision makers just assume China will always back down. China would not retaliate. And so this is why they're so shocked and reacted very, very badly when China did finally throw down the gauntlet, because they did not expect this move. But China today they're prepared to throw down the gauntlet because they had 8 years to prepare for the worst for the trade war. They know what kind of damage they will expect and what kind of damage they can take and what kind of damage they can inflict. This is in the art of war. Know yourself, know your enemy. You win 100 times out of 100 battles. But in case of U.S., if we don't know ourselves, then enemy will not know ourselves either, right? That's a U.S. strategy. But it hasn't been working for Trump.
Hubris, man. Hubris is rough. Arrogance and hubris. What is it? A book? In Three Body, he made this point of like, weakness is not a hedge to existence. Hubris and arrogance is. And for all intents and purposes, as I keep pointing out, the U.S. is not interested in the way other countries function. What they're interested in is in objectives. And so we would come out and say, we're going to do a trade war. Okay, he assumes that everybody else is going to back down and that he's going to be able to dominate the globe. And China tells him to F off. And even in the context of the war, where Trump comes in and assumes, well, I'm going to talk to Vladimir. And when I have a conversation with Vladimir, we'll be able to make this work. Oh my God, Vladimir told me to F off politely. And he's shocked by the whole thing. And it's almost like this new norm that the US is trying to get used to of having peer countries, peer competitors, that doesn't accept this idea of it being in primacy or hegemon. And it's like coming to grips with it. And, you get this humiliation of him dragging himself to Korea, South Korea, only to back down entirely in the trade war. Or even in the context of him having a conversation with Xi Jinping about Ukraine, was like, well, sometimes you got to let them fight it out. Can't do anything about it. It's like, yeah, you can't do anything about it. Congratulations, right?
In their joint statement, they mentioned nothing about Ukraine anymore. They don't even mention about what U.S. want China to do over Russian oil purchase, because China has made its position very clear. It's like, that's none of your business. We're going to continue to buy Russian oil whether you like it or not.
Well, Trump said he didn't even bring it up.
This is well, exactly. Yeah. Well, because it's not going to lead to any results. I mean, it's going to lead to more humiliation. So why? This is So this is a big Taco Thursday moment. I like tacos. I do enjoy tacos.
Yeah, tacos are damn good, man. My boss once, when we're covering the election for what is the name? It'll come to me in a moment. But we're covering the election in Mexico. And he's one of those people that eats everything. I'm one of those people that are very, very choicy. We end up going to this random, I'm calling it a hole in the wall, but I don't mean hole in the wall as a negative. I love hole in the walls. So I'm saying it almost as a positive. And we sit there, and I'm sitting there like, all right, I'll take a taco. And I have no idea what's on the menu because I can't read the menu. And I'm like, all right, just give me that. It's a taco, right? It should be good. It was damn good. I love tacos. So I agree with you. Tacos are fantastic. I'm curious on the rare earths thing. So Xi Jinping didn't change his original policy on rare earths. He just pulled back on the extended rare earths, let's say, policy restrictions that he initially put on. Am I getting that right?
Right. So the restriction that was the Chinese pulled back from the new restriction that was imposed after October 9th. So, which means the restriction that before October 9th is still on, which would still affect the U.S. defense industry, which is it's key. They're still not getting the rare earth for their F-35s and Patriot missiles and all that good stuff. So this is why Trump has been going around knowing that he was signing agreement on getting rare earth supply from Cambodia, from Thailand, from Malaysia, from Australia. But you know what? All that doesn't matter. That's just taking the stuff, digging it out of earth. You still need to refine it. You still need to send it to China to refine it. That is the problem. All these rare earth supply agreement is just PR stuff. To fool his following. Oh, United States securing rare earth supplies. No. You still don't have the refining capability, and that's going to take years, decades to build. So U.S. military machine is still going to face that problem for a long, long time.
Mm. And that's not changing. That policy is not going to change anytime soon.
And not anytime soon, especially with the way the U.S. military, right leading up to the summit, they had conducted a big military naval exercise in South China Sea. That's where they lost that helicopter and the F-18 during the crash.
Yes.
They did this whole exercise to intimidate China in anticipation of the summit, and then it's like that meme. China just do nothing and win. And they they even announced that they're gonna fire some missiles, HIMARS missiles from the Philippines toward the disputed Scarborough Shoal.
Really?
But yes, that was leaked right before the South Korea summit. But that could be one of Trump's negotiation tactics. He always bluffs. So I at this point I don't think I don't think that will even happen, because what's the point anymore? But one more HIMARS missiles they fire, it just means one more they will have to replace, and they're gonna have problem replacing because the existing rare earth restrictions.
Wow. How does China, so from China's point of view, it looks at this as, the longer time we have, the better position we're in. And if we can create a context whereby the U.S. military and whatnot can't continue its buildup, can't launch a war, then by definition we win. Meaning, from China's point of view, this is a checkmate. That the king, like mate in four, that for all intents and purposes, the United States has been restrained militarily. We've defamed the military to a certain degree in the context of, let's say, any kind of large war that it wants to run, because ultimately it would have a hard time replacing its military armaments and capabilities. Warwick Powell pointed out that 75% of the U.S. military equipment is either, let's say, directly related to China, meaning from the standpoint of vendors coming directly from China, or from third-party vendors from China. That number blew my mind. And so when China puts on the restrictions, it hits a large part of the U.S. military and its capability, not just the military, things like AI. So the U.S. economy at this point is effectively living off of AI. If it wasn't for AI, the U.S. economy would be in a recession. And so they've damaged that. Energy production, things like laptops, like just basic things that we don't really even think about in this country are affected by that restriction. Or let's say the slowdown that has effectively been put into place by China on rare earths. And so is that the thought, that the longer the U.S. takes to dig itself out of this hole of rare earths, and it will try to, I mean, it's going to try to scrounge up rare earths and refinement and stuff like that. Hell, it may even use Europe to try to do it. That may take 20 years. In 20 years, this is a checkmate. We will have more planes, we'll have more boats. The strategy of blocking off Chinese shipping and everything else, all of that stuff will be a wash. They lose. Is that the way China looks at this?
Well, I mean, that's a perfect way to look at it. But if you look at the Chinese military parade in September, that was to put United States on notice. Like, look at all this latest hardware we have. We can no longer be contained. And I think that message was well received, because now you have the Pentagon paper saying, "Oh, China, let's focus on Latin America instead," right? I mean, that's why they're doing all these intimidation tactics against Venezuela now. So yeah, I think the risk of war, a big great war breaking out in the Western Pacific, has diminished greatly. Now it's back to economic competition, but all these strong arms by Trump administration have failed. So there's really not much cards U.S. have left on this table. They're like you said, they're putting all their eggs in the AI basket right now. They're betting on this, hundreds of billions of dollars into investment into data centers. Is going to give them this magic wonder drug that's going to somehow propel US to the next level. But I did you just see that Powell just made a statement that the AI boom is not like the dot-com bubble? And I'm thinking, now we have the official confirmation. I mean, well, I have experienced a dot-com bubble. That's when I first got into the job market. And it looks, smells just the same, like because the dot-com bubble at that time, there was a lot of company. Because at that time, everybody knew internet was the future, but there was a lot of money going to all these internet companies that wasn't really producing productive stuff. Now there's a lot of, eventually there's some company that did emerge, like Amazon, Google, but that was well after the burst of the bubble. So, you have to remember, during the dot-com bubble, there was a lot of money chasing a lot of pipe dreams. And for me, it looks about the same from here.
Same here. I was in tech. I ended up being a software engineer. And I remember one of the first jobs that I got, the woman pointed out, she says, we used to make like $1 million off of websites. And now we'd be lucky if we could barely get 100,000. We used to do all of it, right? We used to do database, background, everything else. But the moment that you start getting WYSIWYGs, okay, well, then you don't really need all of those huge shops that used to do it. So those shops went out of business, or those shops had to turn into something else. And it feels a lot similar to that. I could be wrong on this. Because, AI will have some effects. Amazon, all of these companies that have been laying off jobs in the United States. I don't know if you've seen that list. That list is extensive. And the thought is they're going to be replacing some of those people with basically artificial intelligence and finding other ways to get those jobs done. But I agree with you. It feels like you have hundreds of billions of dollars that are chasing fantasies. And at some point that will come to a head. At some point it will come to a head. Especially when you see stuff like the breakthrough technologies coming out of China. Like when China came out with DeepSeek, you can imagine that a lot of asses puckered in the US thinking to themselves, we put all of this money into these companies and they came out with this and it costs so much less. Where's China on this front? I haven't heard a huge amount, even though I know a lot of tech is coming out of China.
This is why Chinese government is pushing for open source in a big way. It's something that I bet very few tech guys expected 20, 30 years ago. China being the big proponent of open source. That's why you are seeing what DeepSeek is basically giving away stuff for free right now, because they realize like the closed model is what will enable American monopolies to dominate. Whereas open source, you will get a whole community, a global community of fellow experts who will keep on working on this stuff. And this is what I just saw somebody tweeted. He said he was meeting with a expert from Global South who at an AI conference, and this AI expert said, thanks to Chinese companies like DeepSeek, now there cannot be an AI apartheid.
Yes.
He used the word AI apartheid. You're not going to have the have-nots and the haves because it's the AI divide, because DeepSeek made it available for everybody. And that is huge. That is important. But again, that's not going to make a lot of Silicon Valley tech bros happy, because that's how they make money. They make money by hyping up this AI thing and their proprietary technology that they get to charge lots of dollar for. And one of their selling points, Jamar, is that all these AI wonder is going to be able to replace a lot of jobs. That's actually one of its main selling points. It says, we can replace all these white collar jobs while paying white collar jobs. Now it will just be replaced by these AI who essentially work for free, right? You just need to support the data centers. You just need to pay for the data center costs. That's it. And they can work 24/7. They don't need to take a vacation. They never get sick. They never complain. And the end goal is like Matrix, right? Like they have these a few tech lords in Silicon Valley control the whole world through their AI machines. But I don't know. I think I don't think that world will come up to pass. I'm I'm fairly confident in that.
Well, it sounds like China is doing this in order to undercut what the U.S. is trying to do in regards to, I like the term AI apartheid. Like, we privatize it, we own it, we use it almost as this kind of in war fighting and everything else. And China's like, well, hey, if we have it as an open source, then people may go to the open source. Like, for example, Google, like Google Docs. Do you really need Microsoft Word if you have Google Docs? Not really. And so it kind of kills your competition in that sense. And the competition in this case is not among companies, it's among nations. It's a fascinating development that China is effectively doing with this, not to mention it's the benefit of allowing everywhere else around the globe to participate in this new technological field. So no, you're absolutely right. I want to play something else for you that took place at the meeting between Trump and Xi Jinping. And I want to get your take on it. This is Donald Trump talking about denuclearization. Because as you know, the Trump administration has decided to renew nuclear weapons tests. Now, they're doing this probably because they got freaked out by Russia's new Doomsday weapons. And that's, Lord knows, those weapons are terrifying, right? Like, they've came out with the new one, Poseidon, that can effectively create tsunamis, which again is terrifying. It's an underwater weapon that has a nuclear motor that can carry nuclear capacity or nuclear payload, can detonate apparently underwater and create tsunamis that effectively wipe out cities. So London will be toast if a war took place. The coast of the US, toast if necessary. Like, this is a true science fiction doomsday weapon using elements of nature in order to strike that weapon. The other one, oh God, I'm going to screw up the name. I'm just going to call it the Storm. I'm going to call it the Storm. That's the translation. But it's like Berezhnik or something to that effect. That thing, again, nuclear motor, can fly for forever and hit whatever target, flying vertical, horizontal, in order to evade air defense systems. Sarmat, that one is called Satan. Berezhnik, like, these are like a new class of just science fiction weapons. Donald Trump gets, I guess, paranoid, and it's like, we need to start nuclear testing, as if that's going to matter. Listen to what he says, though, after announcing that he wants to do nuclear testing. This is right here.
With the nuclear announcement, just one more on the nuclear announcement. Do you worry that we're entering a more risky environment when it comes to nuclear issues?
No, I don't think so. I think we have it pretty well locked up. But we have more than anybody. But I see them testing. I say, well, if they're going to test, I guess we have to test. I'd like to see a denuclearization because we have so many, and Russia has some. Russia's second, and China's third, and China will catch up within 4 or 5 years. I think de-escalation would be, they would call it denuclearization, would be a tremendous thing. And it's something, we are actually talking to Russia about that, and China would be added to that if we do something. Thank you all. It was a great...
They are not talking to Russia about it. Trump is not even talking to Russia about the new START treaty that is going to expire coming up at the first of the year. And how do you have denuclearization talks when you are heading a war in Ukraine and you are marshaling forces in Asia to go after China?
No, you don't. I mean, you don't. And the fact that U.S. want to see, first of all, he has his facts wrong. Russia has the most nuclear warheads. United States is second. Right now, the reason they freeze the nuclear type live testing is for many reasons. One is the big nuclear powers no longer need to have live nuclear tests because they have performed enough tests to get all the data. And from now on, they could, because they also have the compute, they have the supercomputers to model new nuclear, like non-live nuclear tests. Now, this is actually to the advantage of big countries like US, Russia, and China, whereas countries like North Korea and possibly Iran, a live nuclear test will actually benefit them for them to, to observe and collect data. And I don't know why Trump get this idea that he needs to do live nuclear testing. This actually doesn't confer a lot of advantage to United States. On the contrary, you will help countries like North Korea who can then, observe what happens and collect data on that. You will help their nascent nuclear program. So, but this is Trump, right? I mean, this is he was a lot of things he says doesn't make sense. He was famously, talking to the U.S. Navy and said, "I am in favor of the steam catapult. The electromagnetic catapult is a piece of crap. We don't need electromagnetic catapult. We can just keep using steam catapult." Right? I mean, he's like your president for the steampunk future. And, it's not saying that the steam catapult it's obsolete, but there's a reason U.S. military has tried to move from the steam catapult to the electromagnetic catapult. The problem right now is they got embarrassed because China perfected the electromagnetic catapult before United States, because so far the USS Ford, the U.S. most advanced super carrier, their electromagnetic catapult still cannot launch F-35. Whereas China's they came up from behind, but now they're launching 5th generation stealth aircraft on their aircraft carriers electromagnetic catapult. But Trump's solution is, you know what, the steam catapult works great. We should just scrap the electromagnetic catapult and let's just stick with steam, right? I mean, like, we can make a whole anime out of the steampunk president Trump. But that's Trump. Half of the things he says doesn't make sense. So I don't know how seriously we should read his announcement. We'll have to see if U.S. military actually pursues his policies of live nuclear weapon testing, because I just don't see how that actually helps U.S. vis-a-vis Russia or China. But you will help other countries. You will help North Korea and Iran.
I think it's more for optics, to be honest. I think it's we need to show, like when Donald Trump, when he was presented with the new, I keep mispronouncing the name of this weapon. It is a very difficult name to pronounce. It's like Berezhnik or something to that effect.
Orishnik.
No. There's Orishnik.
Orishnik.
But then there's the new one that has the nuclear motor that can fly around the globe. And they tested it, flew around the globe for like 15 hours. And it can loiter, it can hit pretty much any target. It starts with a B. It's like the Berezhnikit or something to that effect. Let me see if I can find it. But when Trump was pushed on this and saying, "Hey, did you see that Russia announced that their new weapon is out and that they're going to start putting this on the battlefield?" And Trump's response was somewhat dismissive for it. He was like, "Hey, basically they need to end the war. They need to stop coming out with these new terrifying weapons." And so it sounds like there's a level of insecurity that's taking place, that he sees, okay, Russia is showing these weapons.
I think if you understand that the fact that he's Trump knows what's good, what plays for the television. He knows what's good for TV, and he knows how to do sound bites. I mean, if you just take it from that. Like a lot of his action is, and a lot of his speech is very explainable. Like you said, it's for optics. It's for optic. It's for posturing, right? And it doesn't have any other deeper meaning than that, Jamar.
Yeah, I don't think it does either. I think he's probably going to blow something up and saying, see, we have nuclear weapons too. So, Russia is showing off its weapons. It's almost like, this sounds very horrible. It's like in fact, I'm not even going to say it. It's a contest. It's a male showing off contest, right? Where, okay, Putin has
That's
shown
exactly what it is. We have a bigger mushroom cloud than you. We have a bigger mushroom cloud.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for cleaning it up, Carl. Thank you for cleaning it up. Yeah. I was trying to think of a better way to say it. And I was like, okay, that sounds very vulgar. But that's what it is, right? I get why Putin is doing it. Putin is doing it because he's trying to make the point of saying, you guys are encroaching on our border, and you don't seem to get that I am serious about this. So I get that, right? It's like you're continuously pushing. Macron is talking about putting troops in. Those people are going to die. You have overthrown the government of Ukraine. You are now talking about potentially having NATO getting involved in the war. Okay, I need to get across to you that I am very serious. You're talking about launching missiles at Russia. Okay, there are consequences to that. And we need to show that we have not just equality, but dominance. Trump seems to be doing it in response to that. But then to say, after making an announcement of we're going to hold nuclear tests, also what we need to do is denuclearize. One of the things that he keeps pointing out also is, well, look, we want to have conversations with Russia about it, but we want to add China into it. Is China ever going to enter in any kind of nuclear, let's say, limitation talks with the United States and Russia in some kind of joint capacity? That's off the table. Yeah.
Why? I mean, right now, China's goal is to reach some sort of nuclear parity first with U.S. I mean, U.S. has an interest to cap China's nuclear arsenal growth, right? That's in U.S. interest. This is why it's in U.S. interest to get China to sign some kind of treaty limiting the nuclear weapon arsenal growth. But China's like, look, you already have thousands of warheads. At least let us have a couple thousand warheads first, and then we can talk, right? And so I think China's goal is gonna reach somewhere around 1,000 nuclear warheads before they will agree to any kind of talks. But what Trump is doing though, he's doing a reverse Roosevelt, right? I mean, Roosevelt said you should talk softly but carry a big stick. What Trump is doing is talk very loudly but carrying an increasingly diminishing smaller stick. This is what U.S. is doing right now. Talking loudly and carrying a diminishingly smaller and smaller stick.
Yeah. So declining empire. I mean, he's dealing with the cards that he has at his disposal. Where it's funny, whereas Obama seemed to try to manage a declining empire, Trump doesn't seem to get the fact that it's declining, and he seems to kind of be made aware of it in one instance after the next as he hits his head on that reality. It's very strange. It's very wild. It's like he doesn't have the capability of recognizing the situation to which he finds himself. It's just very weird. So tell me something. When China is looking out at the world and it's looking out, let's say, at the next 5 years, I know it has its next 5-year plan. How is it viewing the world? How is it viewing various events? When it's looking at the Ukraine war, when it's looking at the issue in Israel, Iran, for example. From my understanding, China has aligned itself pretty heavily with Iran in regards to weapon systems and everything else. One of the reports came out that they said, of course, it's U.S. media, despite UN sanctions. Now, keep in mind, the UN sanctions are just Western sanctions. Russia and China was like, these are nonsense. You guys, have blew off the JCPOA, and then you're attacking Iran for responding to the fact that they were attacked. Meaning, A, you blew off the JCPOA. There's that. B, Iran was in negotiations, and the United States and Israel attacks Iran while they're in the middle of negotiations. Europe, instead of being an honest actor, turns around and attacks Iran, also saying Iran has no right to hit Israel, despite the fact that Israel attacked Iran. And these were the countries that decided we're going to have snapback sanctions because Iran feels some kind of way that the organization that was supposed to be the IAEA, that was supposed to be a nonpartisan
I
actor.
lost you for a moment, Jamar.
Oh, can you hear me? Carl, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm back. I think there's a little
okay.
bit internet latency issue because for me, around this time of the day is when the massive slowdown on the internet. So, yeah.
No, not an issue. I'll shorten the question. Has China been working with Iran in the context of
Did you have a question? Sorry, I didn't catch it. If you had a question.
No, I'll ask it this way. Has China been working with Iran in the context of helping them rebuild weapon systems, missile systems, supplies necessary to build those missile systems?
Well, it's very simple. China does not want Iran to fail, the same way China does not want Russia to fail. So China has been supplying Iran with materials necessary to making missiles, which is one of the strongest weapon in Iran's arsenal right now. And we have heard of talks of Iran purchasing air defense systems from China, and I'm sure China will be more than happy to provide these if Iran asks, because the goal for China is stability. Unlike United States, U.S. modus operandum is lighting fire all around the world. So U.S. itself seems this oasis of calm. So make all the wealthies around the world to continue to park their money in the U.S. Treasury, U.S. stock market, and U.S. real estate market. That was the U.S. gig. But for China's Belt and Road Initiative to succeed, you want stability. The one thing China really hates is instability, right? And China sees that if Iran were to fail, will be heavily destabilizing in Middle East, for example. So for that reason, alone, China would not want Iran to fail. And so, but a lot of the things, unlike United States, where it talks very loudly and carrying a diminishing stick, China does not usually openly talk about these kind of things. There's a lot of under the table deal. We will find out. We usually find out much later that such transaction has been taken place. So for us, it's sometimes it's hard to speculate, the extent of cooperation, but you can be sure there is.
Well, there's also a geopolitical reason beyond instability. Like, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Iran is a linchpin, not just to China, but also to Russia. It's like for example, everywhere the United States turns, it's either running into China, Russia, or Iran. And all of these things are intractable from the standpoint of U.S. foreign policy. It wants to hand this stuff off. And the way it's trying to hand it off to is, okay, maybe I can get the Philippines, South Korea, Japan to deal with China. Maybe I can get Europe to deal with Russia. Maybe I could get Israel and their greater Israel project to deal with Iran. Obviously, Europe is not in a position to deal with Russia. Obviously, those other smaller countries are not in a position to deal with China. And Israel, after taking a beating in the 12-day war, doesn't seem like it's in a position to deal with Iran. By the same token, though, there's a belief that the United States and Israel will go to war, or at the very least are planning some kind of war against Iran. Will China stand by and allow Iran to fail? I guess that's one of the main questions. I mean, that's often a question for Russian experts also. But give me your take on it. How do you see it?
Well, like I said before, I don't think if Iran by itself, it has more than enough capability to handle with Israel on its own. The big question is, would United States get directly involved? I mean, U.S. is already involved through its backing of Israel, but the question is whether U.S. would get directly involved in a kinetic war with Iran. My guess is no. Otherwise Trump wouldn't have done that, intentional glancing blow at the Iranian nuclear facility the way he did a few months back. Because Trump, I don't think he has appetite for a big, potentially a quagmire nightmare scenario. Because he lived long enough through Iraq and Afghanistan. He probably would not want that on his legacy. He would go for very quick, low-hanging fruit and declare victory.
Like Venezuela.
But a war against Iran is not one of those scenarios. So I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, there will be a lot of forces, pro-Israeli forces in the administration pushing for that. But, ultimately, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think, that's what Trump signed up for.
From your mouth to God's ears, because there are a lot of military people that have been on this channel that are of strong belief that. So I had Colonel Wilkerson on the show. Wilkerson had went so far as to say by Thanksgiving, the United States will be involved in a war against Iran. And then when he came back on the show, he said, after kind of getting an assessment on Iran's capability, there's been a postponement. It's like, there's like, okay, maybe we don't want to do this yet. Maybe we need to do this later. But, that's always the irony, right?
Jamar, you have to realize that, United States, they run all sorts of scenarios. They have been wargaming this forever, how to fight and win a war against Iran. And so far I have not seen one war game scenario which was not rigged that showed U.S. scored a resounding, convincing victory against Iran. So I mean, yeah, it's not. It doesn't mean they won't try. It doesn't mean they won't continue to do war planning to test out all kind of scenario how to do regime change in Iran. But I just don't think anything will be put into practice anytime soon.
Last question: China and Venezuela. China has a relationship with South America, obviously, and that relationship with South America has been growing. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, they have a port in Peru that is one of the largest in South America as we speak. And it is widely believed that part of the reason that Trump is even going after Venezuela, yes, it's the oil, but it's also because of this kind of relationship between China and Russia that is in their backyard. Give me your take on that. I don't believe China is going to get involved in a war, in this case, if Trump escalates against Venezuela. So I guess I'm not asking the question in that sense, but certainly they have a take on it. Russia's been seemingly dumping military equipment in Venezuela. Do you know if China has been doing something similar, or they have been more hands-off on this?
Well, I mean, if right now, for China to do that directly, it will not necessarily help Venezuela, because U.S. is very sensitive about this whole China in Latin America thing. Like that, if there's a report of China supplying weapons, that won't probably gonna trigger something more drastic from United States. So China prefers economic assistance, which has been happening. China has been trying to upgrade Venezuela's oil infrastructure. One of the problems with U.S. sanction against Venezuela is the Venezuela state oil sector needed a lot of investment, and they needed to upgrade their refining capabilities, their a full spectrum. China can provide that. That's one area where China can provide that will help to shore up the mainstay of Venezuelan economy, which is oil. That's another area United States do not like to see, but it's kind of harder to justify a open invasion of Venezuela based on just that. And I think again, even in the Venezuelan case, Trump will prefer like an easy victory. This is why they're doing right now. What they're doing is intimidation. They're turning the U.S. Navy there, killing people. it's to intimidate Venezuela, but maybe hoping to inspire some kind of color revolution within Venezuela itself. This is why they're given to like Nobel nominate that lady from
lunatic.
Venezuela for the Nobel
Machado.
for Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, this and now they're running out a lot of manufacturing of consent by showing, oh, you see, Venezuela's economy is not doing good. This is why we need to go save them. Of course, by saving them, that means we're going to send our military down there to spread democracy. But I don't think U.S. is ready for a big war. However, if Trump believes he can win an easy victory, that might happen. But so far, it looks like he is just leaning toward intimidation and color revolution and regime change. That scenario rather than a direct military invasion. But with Trump, you never know. We have to see how things develop down there.
Carl, you are awesome, man. Thank you for this. Carl Jha, he is host of Silk and Steel podcast, focused on China and surrounding regions and their history, culture, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Jha, his podcast on Twitter at Steel Silk, letter N. Subscribe to the podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/Silk and Steel. Carl, always appreciate you joining me, man. Thank you for this. You be safe, okay?
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. All right. Carl Jha is fantastic. And I'm going to go from one fantastic guest to another. Dan Kovalik. How you doing, Dan? You doing okay this morning?
I'm okay. Good morning. How you doing? I'm okay.
I am doing well. I am better that you are with me. Dan Kovalik, he's an American human rights, labor rights lawyer, and political activist. Previously taught at the International Human Rights at the University of Pittsburgh School of Law. Dan, congratulations. Congratulations on order. I was crowing about you this morning when I opened my show.
That's really nice of you. Thank you.
I am always, when my guests do stuff, I'm always, appreciative is not the word for it. I'm always proud of my guests when they're doing stuff. I have another guest that is doing something pretty big. He's in Africa right now. He told me not to say anything about it, so I'm not. I want to wait till he exposes it. But I thought this was fantastic from on yours. I'm just going to read it. A tweet. Gustavo Petro, president of Colombia. Indeed, Bernie Moreno's threat has come true. My children, my family, and I have been added to the OFAC list. My lawyer in defense will be Dan Kovalik from the USA. The same Dan that I'm speaking to right now, fighting drug trafficking for decades and effectively has brought me to this measure from the government of the society we helped so much to curb their cocaine consumption. A complete paradox, but not a step back and never on our knees. That was the president of Colombia. Congratulations, Dan. So how did this come about? What is going on with this? For one, what is the OFAC list? Let's go to basics first.
Yeah, the OFAC list it's the Office of Foreign Asset Control list. And what it is, it's a blacklist. If you're on the list, it means that you cannot hold monies in U.S. banks. You cannot do business with U.S. People or companies. And it really has a cascading effect. I mean, it even affects, any institution that itself has connection with U.S. banks or companies is impacted too. So, for example, all of the assets that Petro and his wife have in Colombia have been frozen.
Really?
Yes. So they
Because
can't
they're
even
connected to U.S. banks.
Yeah. And so they can't get money out for daily needs to pay for their kids' education. So basically it destroys your economic life. And of course, the people around you can't deal with you, because if they deal with you, they could be sanctioned too, right? So I mean, it really is a means to, first of all, really isolate the people on the list, but it can also, what often happens is the entire country ends up sanctioned. You know, when your head of state is on the list, again, it can have this cascading effect where, you know, the country itself or major industries in the country are sanctioned. So it's a very serious matter. It's obviously politically motivated. This follows Petro's appearance at the United Nations a couple weeks ago, in which he really denounced the genocide in Gaza, talked about the need to send in a military force to stop the genocide. He ended up on the street protesting and speaking out against the U.S. threats against Venezuela, telling U.S. military to disobey, you know, unjust orders. And immediately Trump was upset about this. He took away Petro's visa at that point. And Petro left the country. Petro also recently announced that Colombia was leaving the partnership with NATO, which was strange. It was even, you know, had anything to do with NATO, which is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's not the North Atlantic.
Yes.
So all these things combined clearly led to this. As Petro mentions in that statement you read, I mean, he's been fighting drug cartels his entire political career. And now they put him on the OFAC list, alleging that he himself is involved in the drug trade, which is just ridiculous. So that's where we're at.
So he contacted you and said, hey, can you be my lawyer? So did you know Petro before?
I've known Petro for about 20 years. I knew him when I knew him when he was a senator. I knew him when he was a mayor. And our paths have crossed a number of times. When he was a senator, he was very important in exposing what was known then as the para-political scandal, the scandal in which a number of government people, Congress people, the president, others, were exposed as having relationships with the paramilitary death squads. And he was very instrumental as a senator in exposing that, denouncing it. At the same time, I was doing similar work. I was also writing and was an activist against the paramilitary military ties, you know, because the U.S. was giving at that point
death squads
billions of dollars to the Colombian military that was working with the death squads, right? And I had a big case at that time, a couple big cases against companies like Coca-Cola that we were alleging were themselves working with the paramilitary death squad. So our work was, you know, overlapping, and I, at some point, invited him to the U.S., was able to do that through my union, the Steelworkers, to speak to Senate, to the Senate about what was happening in Colombia. And that's how I met him. So I've known him for about 20 years, and we've been talking for a while about possible litigation in the U.S. And I talked with him a couple days before he made that announcement, before we even knew that he was going to be on the OFAC list, you know. So the actual announcement came as a little bit of a surprise to me, but not totally, because again, I had been in communication with him for years, on and off.
So how does a person contest Trump putting him on this list? Like, it doesn't feel like this would be a normal court, or is it a normal court?
Well, there are two means to do it. You could go directly into court alleging due process violations, other constitutional violations, First Amendment violations, in this case that he, we think he was put on the list because of statements he made, again, at the United Nations of all places.
But does that count as a First Amendment since he's not an American citizen?
Well, the First Amendment doesn't just apply to American citizens. I mean, if you look at at the Bill of Rights, some of the rights are limited to citizens, but not all are, and the First Amendment is not.
Interesting.
And he was in the U.S. at the time he made that statement. So he has some First Amendment protections. That's why, for example, and some judges have ruled in favor of these immigrants that have been, threatened with deportation based on their pro-Palestinian statements or activism. Even though they're immigrants, they have First Amendment rights. So that might be a very good, opportunity for us. Yeah.
What other ways, if the First Amendment grounds aren't, let's say, honored by the court, what are other ways to try to contest this? I mean, you mentioned due process, effectively saying this is arbitrary, that the president put this on for reasons other than legitimate real world phenomena reasons. Like, I guess for that, you would have to.
Without any due process, without giving it, without warning him that this may happen, giving him a chance to defend himself, all the things we think of as showing him the evidence that he's basing it on, again, allowing him to respond to that, to cross-examine witnesses. That's all part of due process. None of that was done, and it's never done,
Well, this sounds dumb, but does the president need to warn? Does the president need to follow some kind of due process to put people on?
Well, the answer is, with this OFAC list, no, the president hasn't done that, generally speaking, but the argument is he should.
I see.
When you destroy someone's economic life, you take everything they have, presumably they're entitled to some due process before you do that, right?
Yeah.
So, so you could go to court and make those arguments. The other way is to do it through an administrative challenge through the Treasury Department itself, which is a very long and Byzantine process. Neither way is easy, for sure. Because the president, as you say, has been given a lot of latitude to do this. But again, has he been properly given it? I mean, does he really have the right to do these things? So there have been some successful challenges to it, but not many,
Well, it seems like I had this conversation with Garland yesterday about if a police officer, if an ICE agent tried to take you off the streets, and they said, well, this guy is not an American citizen, and so we're going to snatch him and throw him into the back of some kind of, paddy wagon. And if the person says, well, look, I'm an American citizen, and just so happened, the person had a birth certificate, had a picture of when he was born, had a picture of conception, maybe, like I'm just saying, like, let's say he had all the evidence necessary. Picture of conceptions would be kind of wild, but whatever. Just all the evidence necessary to indicate that I am an American citizen. Full stop. It is a flat fact, and I can prove it right here on the spot. And Garland was like, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. The officer would not protect your rights, and they most likely would not get involved. And I guess my thing is that something similar here? Like, you can go through the Treasury Department, but the Treasury Department is effectively part of the executive branch. If you go through the courts, even if you can prove as a flat fact that what the president is saying is lying, like, this is nonsense. He has worked against the drug cartels. We can prove it as a flat fact. We can prove it that he does not deserve to be on this list. Will the courts get involved?
Well, they might. The answer is, if you get the right judge, yes. I mean, you could have have some success, but it's very difficult.
Yeah.
For the reasons you say, but it's certainly a fight worth making, I think. Not just for Petro, but again, for the rule of law in general. and in the case you give, yeah, it's true that the ICE agent can and does in many instances take people off the streets and detain them. But ultimately, due process does protect those people in the end. If they truly are a citizen, they should be able to show that and go to a court and show it and be ordered freed.
Mhm.
Right? There are due process protections. Now they seem to be weakening quite a bit, but they are there. And in any case, we have to fight and assert those rights to keep them.
Agreed.
So that's you know that's the importance. And I think also in this instance, it's also about rejecting U.S. imperialism and saying, look, you can't
It's
go
no good.
around bullying other world leaders because you don't like what they say or because they don't like the fact you're going to invade their neighbor or that you're murdering fishermen in the Caribbean. That is not how the world should work. That is not the world that I want to live in.
Agreed. And by the way, you had set precedent with this also, right? Like, meaning if you win this case going forward, this could be an argument used against capricious putting people on lists. Like, I don't like what Jamal said, so he's now on a list. Well, this would indicate that, well, no, the president has to show some level of due process in the context of doing this. He can't just arbitrarily throw people on lists that he don't necessarily like.
Yeah, no, we have to fight that. We have to fight that because I think you're going to see more and more of this. And again, not just against foreign persons, but against citizens too.
American.
We saw this, for example, in Canada. Remember the trucker strike during COVID with bank accounts were frozen there without due process. I think a lot of those, if not all, were reversed ultimately. But I mean, you can destroy someone's life if you freeze their account for any period of time. If you can't pay your rent or your mortgage, I mean, we can't allow this. You have all those instances in which police just take people's property and money, right? If they apprehend you and you have money in your car or whatever, it's
Why
just
do you have
crazy
$1,000?
stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway, so that's why I think it's an important case. But is it difficult? Sure. I mean, we're fighting against an administration that really doesn't care about the rule of law at all. It doesn't even pretend to.
Yeah. No, my questions aren't criticisms. They're just for me to understand the context of the case and the case that's being brought and how you're fighting this case. It is obviously a worthy case that needs to be fought. I mean, because if a precedent is set where the president is not a king, he can't just, I don't like Bob, so I'm putting Bob on the list. Well, if Bob has the ability to say, well, what is the due process for you putting me on this list? Which Bob should be able to do, by the way. Like,
Right.
Bob should be able to say, okay, well, if you're destroying my life, you need to be able to show something to give some kind of reason or rationale for you destroying my life. It can't just be arbitrary. If you can do it arbitrary, you can do it to anybody. And so, I think it's a legitimate, fair fight that needs to take place. And it's not necessarily a fair fight, but it's a fight that damn sure needs to take place. Agreed. When they are murdering fishermen and those type of things, can those people also bring cases against the U.S. government?
Yes, and I've been talking to Petro's administration about that too. So we're looking into that as well. There's actually something called the Foreign Tort Claims Act, which allows you to sue the U.S. government, for serious abuses like these, like killing, murdering people, and trying to get compensation. And I think that's a very viable case here.
So that would also go through, what court would that go through? Would that go through just a basic court? Is there a special court?
You first start that by sending a demand letter and outlining your case to the government. and allow, that you're giving them a chance to negotiate some sort of settlement. And if that doesn't work, then you go into court, federal district court.
And then the judge in that particular case will listen to it, and there would have to be a determination. Is there an initial determination of whether the case is legit? Or does
yes, they might file a motion to dismiss, and that's when, you argue whether, you've alleged enough to even get into court. But then if you pass that, which I think we would, then you go to discovery. And, we're
that'd
entitled
be
to
interesting.
information about, well, what evidence did you have against these people? But honestly, even if they did have evidence, there's no there's no law anywhere that says you can just murder people. If you think someone's a drug trafficker, they should be arrested, they should be tried and convicted. And even then, in the United States, there's no state, even states that have capital punishment, there's no state where drug trafficking is a capital crime.
Right.
It would not warrant death, right? There's no justification for what the president is doing in this regard. None. I think it's a slam dunk case, to be honest.
Well, he's murdered. Apparently, they've killed 3 or 4 other boats, murdering
Over
the people.
50 people now. No, it's many boats now. I mean, it's over 50 people.
No, I just meant like 4 boats recently, like over the course of the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And so they murdered over 50 people. This is all on Trump's word, meaning no evidence, no information has been presented short of, we think they're drug smugglers. Intel, apparently, I think this was Dropsite News, pointed out that intelligence officials have pointed out that these boats couldn't even make it to the United States.
Right.
They
would need to refuel 20 times. Rand Paul said that.
Which makes no sense.
It makes this is murder, pure and simple, murdering innocent people for political gain, I guess. That's why it's being done. It's just crazy. I mean, again, it needs to stop, and I think that's a slam dunk case. I really do. I don't see how he can defend that.
Well, more interesting, though, in this case, oddly enough, would bring a case like this, and potentially even winning a case like this, slow down this idea of pushing to overthrow Maduro. Like, meaning if you drag the U.S. government into court, and in the context of the case, let's say, getting to the point of discovery, and the U.S. government has to somehow disclose what they have at their disposal to show that these people were guilty of anything, and the U.S. government has bupkis, or very little. Let's say they say, well, 3 of the 50 people we murdered were drug smugglers. Okay, well, that looks pretty bad in this notion of saying that Maduro is sending drugs to the United States, and the entire reason for the military buildup is because of that. Wouldn't this be an angle to try to deal with this military buildup against Venezuela, Colombia, etc.?
Yeah, it would help. It would certainly be one, form of struggle against that, right? Because, if it's not true that these people are drug smugglers, then maybe it's not true that Venezuela is part of the drug trade in a significant way, right? I mean, of course. No, I think that's why it's very important. But again, it's important just to defend the sanctity of life. I mean, this is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Could you imagine if China were doing this, or Russia? I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah. I think that guy's a drug smuggler, so I'm going to murder that guy. And it's like, well, wait a minute, the boat can't even get to the United States. Yeah, trust me, I'm Trump. That's what it is, right?
And no one trusts him anyway. That's the other thing. Like, why would you believe him? I mean, it's just really incredible. And what's really incredible is that there's very little outcry about it.
That is the part that blows my mind. Like weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, right? We spend $10 trillion to overthrow the government of Iraq and Afghanistan in the way that we did this. Everybody knows it's a lie. Everybody. It's not even like, even people who fought in it at this point know it's a lie. And then Trump immediately, with the thinnest of veils, said, Maduro is a drug kingpin. Now, mind you, we put in a drug kingpin in Honduras when we took Zelaya out, and we put in Hernandez. Hernandez was a literal drug kingpin. He was a narco president. And they got him saying stuff like, I want to put cocaine into the nose of every gringo. In which case, they eventually arrested him and put him into New York. They extradited him to New York. So we put in drug kingpins. Venezuela is not a drug kingpin.
No.
Colombia is not a drug kingpin. Why do you think that the outcry has been so muted? And do you think this outcry will be muted for us trying to overthrow any random government? That this is just, we're an anesthetized population where we just don't care?
It seems so. I mean, first of all, the media seems utterly obsequious to power. Even though they will criticize Trump on various issues, when it comes to foreign policy, the media, including the New York Times, that claims to be such an upstanding institution, all this,
I'm sorry, Danny, to interrupt you. Not just including, especially the New York Times.
Especially the New York Times. They go along with the foreign policy aims of the United States, no matter who's in power. If the U.S. is vilifying a leader in another country, they amplify that vilification, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, and most people have bought it. I mean, frankly, this is, you know, when you look at like Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, and Maduro, those people are not vilified overnight. It has been years of drip, drip, drip propaganda against Maduro.
Yeah.
And the other leaders I mentioned who are now dead. The population has been primed to hate Maduro. And just like they were Gaddafi and Hussein and Assad in Syria. And it makes it very easy then at some point to take them out because people believe they're monsters. So, and again, that would be impossible if the media didn't play along with that. And they do.
Agreed. Daniel, I'm going to let you go because, as you pointed out, I saw your text where you say you only give me 30 minutes.
Thank you.
I thank you for this, man. Great breakdown. Again, you have my congratulations. I hope you kick ass in this case.
Thank you.
You be safe. Have a good one, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Enjoy Kathmandu, man. All right. Take care.
Oh, I would try. I would
All
try.
right.
Have a good one. Dan Kovalik, he is an American human rights, labor rights lawyer, political activist. He previously taught international human rights at the University of Pittsburgh School of Law. I'm fascinated by that case. And because think of it, imagine this. Imagine this. Not saying this is going to happen, but imagine this. Several Colombians were murdered in those boats that Donald Trump blew up. Gustavo Petro says, all right, I am having a legal case on behalf of those people and those families. I will back those families in this legal case. Dan brings up a team, goes to court, or sends a message to the government saying, we are suing you for this. The government tells him to F off because the government doesn't accept that they could be sued in this. He takes it to court. They get initially past the first round of them saying they want a dismissal. For whatever particular reason, they want the dismissal. And what they argue is effectively, these men were fishermen. Full stop. There was no drug connection with them at all. And the U.S. military just murdered them. And we are suing for damages for that murder. They get to discovery. Now, it may not even make it to discovery because the U.S. government may just say, we'll pay them off. The moment that you get to discovery, though, what happens? The U.S. government has to somehow show what they had on those people to say that they were drug kingpins, that they were delivering drugs. Now, if you have them out there in boats with fishing rods, and the U.S. government is saying, well, we think they were sending cocaine to the United States. Now, again, that is not a death penalty case in and of itself. There's that. Two, if you indeed believe that these people are selling drugs and you're watching the boat and watching the boat to the point where you can blow up the boat, then you can apprehend that boat also. You have all sorts of military hardware out there. You can follow it with a drone as it is moving to the US and apprehend the boat. So you don't have to murder the people that's in the boat. You're choosing for murder. But you've already murdered them, right? How does the US government prove that these people are drug mules and drug sellers and carrying important drugs? How do you do that? How do you do that? And if indeed they're able to win that case where they're able to show, especially after discovery, that they had nothing in order to back this up, and the court kind of makes this point of saying, look, you're just out there murdering people. What the hell are you doing? Yes, we're going to award this family a certain amount of money. What happens if many of the families associated even with Venezuela do the exact same thing? I mean, they have their day in court also like anybody else. Then what? How do you create a legit argument and justification, which is what the Trump administration is doing? The reason why I think this is a fascinating idea is because what Trump is using is a thin veneer of making the argument that, hey, we are going through a regime change war because Maduro is a narco president and is sending fentanyl or cocaine into the United States. That's what he's doing. And that gives us a casus belli to overthrow the government of Venezuela and to murder whoever's out in the waters in the Caribbean. That's our argument. That's the Trump's case. That is the basic, thinly veiled nonsense, the bullshit that he is spewing in order to justify murder. And the American public, honestly, like the German public during the Nazi government, says, okay, we'll accept whatever nonsense you give us. We don't like Maduro. We have our wives, we have our jobs, we have our Xbox, we have our movies. Superman is out in theaters. We have other things to do. So we don't like Maduro. You said he was a bad guy. And so if indeed you have some kind of reason to go after him, regardless of how thinly veiled that reason is, despite the fact that the government is shut down, despite the fact the military is not being paid, we're okay with you doing it. What happens when that gets blown away in court? Meaning, it's not that the military component of it gets blown away. It's the justification of the military component that gets blown away in court. Now, I understand that the case that Dan Kovalik is running against Gustavo Petro is different. But you've been randomly murdering families. That's pretty astonishing. And if indeed there's a premise in U.S. law that allows those families to go to court to get some kind of penance, some small pittance of compensation for the fact, for your crimes and atrocities, they should do it. They should do it, A, because what the U.S. government was doing is just grotesque. But B, it also exposes the U.S. government for the lying sack of shit that it is, a group of psychopaths that is willing to murder a lot of people for this kind of geopolitical expansion in regards to South America. And honestly, I think part of it is they got humiliated in Ukraine. And you may say, well, what does Ukraine have to do with Venezuela? What is the US dollar based on? In real terms, what is it based on? Now, you can say it's the petrodollar. Fair enough. You can say it's based on oil. But at this point, not all oil is enumerated in dollars, or let's say is put through dollars. That's not really the case at this point. I mean, you have the yuan, the Petro yuan is a thing now. And who knows how that expands into the future. Saudi Arabia has diversified how it sells oil. All right. So what is the full faith and credit of the U.S. based on? We're $38 trillion in debt. We can't even keep the lights on from the standpoint of the government. Infrastructure is falling apart, or at the very least falling behind many other nations. And we have just been utterly humiliated in Ukraine. We've just been bullied by China in a trade war. And from the standpoint of a conflict against Iran, Israel, our colony, just got bashed in 12 days. It took the worst beating of its life of 12 days. I had some damn good coffee during that 12 days. So again, what is the US dollar based on? Military. We spend $1 trillion on that military. And the thought and the belief is we can project power all across the globe at the drop of a hat. We can murder anybody on the globe. We can destroy pretty much any country that we want to. That was true in the 90s. That is not true now. And so, like the guy that gets beat up at a bar fight that feels the need to assert his manhood, he goes home and beats his wife. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that Venezuela is the wife, but I am saying that there are various hard targets that the United States doesn't necessarily want to touch, or at the very least understands that it can't touch without potentially ending the world. China, Russia being two of them. I would make the argument that even though Iran is not necessarily a world-ending event, it would lose that war, or at the very least take a huge amount of damage in the context of trying to win it. What about Venezuela? Is this a guy that gets humiliated trying to show his manhood? Is that what this is? Whereas the US needs to find some way to show that the thing that the dollar, and let's say the credibility that the United States rests on, its military, is still capable of accomplishing these sorts of objectives. And whereas it couldn't necessarily do it from the standpoint of Ukraine, couldn't necessarily do it in the context of Iran when it tried to overthrow the government of Iran that failed. Afghanistan, Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Is Venezuela the new target? The new way to assert manhood? Hey, our penis still gets hard. Is it that? I don't know. It could just be the oil. It could just be the relationship between China and Russia. It could be any of those things. But the country itself seems to just not care. And the thinly veiled argument that is effectively being used, if indeed there's a legal means of going after that argument in court, it should be done. Shout out to Dan. Shout out to Dan. I hope they go through with it. Lord knows I hope they go through with it. Let's see. Let's go to chat real quick. Auntie Ann, I really like this angle for the set. Even better. Great show this week. As always, appreciate you. Auntie Ann, thank you for this. I've been trying to get this camera and this angle correct. I am finally in a location that has a great color scheme. So I do appreciate it. Thank you, Auntie Ann. I appreciate the compliment. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know what's funny? The host yesterday, after I finished my show, I had a conversation with my mom, and I heard him knock on the window. He says, hey, he says, they just had celebrations here. There was a festival here over the course of when I first got in. There was a festival for like the week. And he says, my family in the village, who loves me greatly, he says, they bought me, he said, do you drink? And I was like, well, actually, I had a thing of wine that I got while I was cutting the videos and everything else. He says, well, I don't typically drink, by the way, but which is why that wine immediately went to my head yesterday. But he says, my family from the village made alcohol, meaning they themselves made it. And he says, would you like some? Now I'm thinking he's talking about like a cup. He brings like a bottle of something that I haven't necessarily had the opportunity to dip into yet. But I was like, dude, shout out to you, man. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. He said, my family who loves me. Russia's putting the United States on notice. Fuck around and find out. Kevin, that is exactly what it is. But it's not just the US. It's Europe also. I mean, that tsunami would wash Britain away, right? Britain would be a thing of history. Moonshine. That was without lols. I was thinking the same thing. I was like the same thing. I was like, they did that in the how did they make that? But you say thank you, and you you go in on that bottle. That's what you do. No, it was nice for him to do it. It really was nice for him to do it. Some folks are friends. Yeah, he was like, my family who loves me. He was like, they bought me a huge amount of alcohol. Would you like some? And he was like, it's not that strong. He says, but it's really good. Yeah. I'm not in France. I'm not in France, Lumpy. Not in France at all. What is this? Remember that inducted corrupt Rome described its secret societies as Luciferian and militant. Look at which secret societies in the Jesuits and the Knights of Malta. The Knights of Malta is fascinating. Fascinating. They are almost a government unto itself. They have passports that can pretty much go anywhere. There's a belief that they are carrying certain global secrets. Certain global secrets. It is very weird. The Knights of Malta is very weird. Knights of Malta is very, very weird. Europe is doomed. The United States got them off cheap Russian energy onto expensive energy, but they have nowhere near as much to make it, so they need to take it from Venezuela. Yes. But it's not Europe that's taking it from Venezuela. It's the U.S. taking it from Venezuela. Do you really believe that the United States is going to sell Europe energy any cheaper than what it's getting now? It will not. I mean, even if it got its hand on Venezuelan oil, the United States found a lucrative market in raping Europe. Yes, they were open to that rape, but it's rape nonetheless. I mean, Europe, do you remember when I think it was Stoltenberg was making this argument that Europe was a garden? Europe, it was like our garden with, insinuation that everywhere else is a jungle. It was like our garden amongst these jungle bunnies. And what they seem to not understand is that that garden was running on cheap Russian energy. It's like it wasn't like you were a garden unto yourself. Like Europe was this. Have you ever watched this movie Fountain with, I can't think of his name. What is his name? I can't think of his name. He's a famous actor. Fountain was fantastic. Great movie. There's a scene in it where there's like a tree, like a little garden, and it has a bubble around it, and it is flying in space, like at the speed of light. And he is doing everything in his power to keep this tree alive. That's not Europe. It's not that, right? Europe is not this garden floating through space, floating through the vacuum. It, like every other country, is interdependent upon the countries and the entities that are around it. And in this case, it did not know how good it had it. It just did not know how good it had it. You used a foreign actor to instigate itself into your politics, to get you to give up the thing that allowed you to live the life that you wanted to live. So your beautiful healthcare, your croque monsieurs that are fantastic in France, by the way. You can sit there, eat one, drink an espresso, a cappuccino, look at the Eiffel Tower. Beautiful life. You allowed a foreign entity to screw your life up royally. So instead of being able to take a hot shower, now you're taking warm showers. Instead of being able to be in a warm house in the winter, your thermostat is turned so low that it is freezing and that you have to turn on the oven, which burns the refrigerator. I'm speaking from experience on this. I'm speaking from experience. I would tell you this. I was in, God, this was years ago. I was in Germany and it was so cold. Like, meaning it was freezing. And the thermostat, because as an American, if it gets cold, we just turn up the thermostat. That was not possible. Like, it was almost like a limit on how hot or how warm the thermostat would get. I had never seen anything like it. And I end up opening the stove to try to use the stove in order to heat the rest of the house. In doing that, it ends up burning the refrigerator because the refrigerator was so close to the stove that it melted the thing on the refrigerator. This cost me a lot of money. As I pointed out to the person for the Airbnb, I was like, dude, if I was boiling water for a period of time, or if I was just cooking something, let's say I was cooking a turkey, it would have done the exact same thing. It was the way that they had arranged the icebox that created the issue. Now, you can make the argument, well, we didn't want you to cook a turkey. Okay, but that's not, that's not on the, that wasn't part of the thing. Yeah, that wasn't part of the thing. Big upgrade from Jakarta. Yeah, this one is a nicer apartment. It's different though. It's I don't know how to explain it. Apartments have feels. They have all right, I'll explain it this way. Jakarta was a studio. It was a very small location. Paramount to the Strip is saving money, meaning I need to spend less than I would spend in the States, and I need to spend dramatically less than I would spend in the States. Otherwise, what is the point of the trip? The entire point of the trip is to cut costs to the bone, to the quick. And so Jakarta allowed me to do that in regards to the amount of pay for treatments and the amount of pay for the apartment. The apartment was like $300. And so you just kind of suck it up that it's a smaller space. I needed a place in Kathmandu, but I didn't like the way that the studio was set up in Jakarta. And so I was looking for somewhere where it would allow me to I can create a better studio. And usually when I see a kitchen table, especially a big one, that allows me to create the studio. You don't exactly know before you jump into the place, but as you're looking at the images, you're trying to figure out, okay, what is the layout of the location? Does the layout of the location allow you to set up the way you want to set up? I spent weeks looking for places because I was trying to find a place that was adequate for the studio. And this was the best place I found. It is more than I wanted to spend on it, but that's okay. I'm actually saving money on treatments here. So it kind of balanced out. The treatments here are $40. The treatments are $40. I nearly fell out of my chair. In fact, it's not even that much. I think it's like 28. And so even though I'm spending more for the hotel, for the apartment, I spend less on treatments. The layout is very different though. In Jakarta, I was on the 36th floor, 39th floor. So it was like the top floor, balcony, you walk outside, there's sunlight gleams into the room, which again has a different feel to it. You feel like you're in the open. You feel like there's sunlight. There is, and sunlight flooding into a room has a very good feel to it, at least to me. This is not that. Kathmandu is not set up that way. This is an apartment, a traditional Nepali apartment. And it's gorgeous internally, like on the inside of it, it's very nice. The ceilings are lower though. And because I'm tall, many Nepalis are short. Because I'm tall, it feels oppressive in the way that it hangs. It takes a while to get used to. It's taken a while to get used to. What you heard, they had amazing hash. Does it? Does it? Does it? I would not know that. I would not know that. I wouldn't even know where to get it from. I would not even know where to get it from. Nepal, Jamal is attracted to color revolutions. I am not attracted to color revolutions. I am not attracted to color revolutions. And by the way, they would take issue if you say that here. They would take great issue if you say that. Oh, they would take great issue if you say that. Look, man, it's complicated. I've had a conversation with people here about it. And the way that they explained it, I didn't know this in advance. The police here killed 19 children. They killed 19 children. Apparently, the kids were still in their school uniforms when they killed them. That pissed people off. So what started as a protest immediately became very threatening to the state. They started burning down police stations. They started burning down government buildings. They started burning down buildings that were associated with the people who were responsible in power. And at a certain point, when they told the police to shoot protesters, the police told them no. Okay, at that point, the government is denuded. The aspect that protects power has stopped protecting that power. The government had nowhere to go. The government had to leave. Now, from my point of view, that doesn't necessarily mean that a huge amount of money wasn't poured into, let's say, giving their protests legs. But obviously, they had rationale and reason to be pissed off. Also, I was here 18 years ago when the king stepped down. This wasn't on purpose. It was just, I ran into visa issues for Cambodia and I ran into visa issues for Philippines. The Philippines has one of the hardest visiting systems I've ever come across. So much so I was like, fuck this. You just don't want people to come, which is fine. I don't need to come. I'm not obliged to come to the Philippines. Also, the Philippines had the issue of you would fly out and then it's very expensive anywhere else you're trying to go when you're trying to fly back, unless you're going to somewhere like Vietnam, in which case you have to jump from like you have to do the hop thing again. That didn't work. Cambodia also had somewhat of a similar issue where it was more expensive to come from the airport in Cambodia to get to other locations. Again, the issue is saving costs, saving money. And so any hop that you do has to be somewhat of a short hop. Otherwise, you're going to be spending a huge amount of money in the context of the hop. So it's easier to hop from, so let's say Indonesia to Thailand. That might be $50. Or Indonesia to Vietnam. Even Indonesia to Philippines is not overly expensive. But the moment that you're trying to leave the Philippines, it becomes a pain in the ass because you have to fly further to get back. Kathmandu wasn't expensive. That was somewhat of an easy hop. Now the issue is, okay, how do you get out of Kathmandu? Going from Kathmandu to, let's say, to Bucharest, for example, it's going to be expensive. So it's most likely going to have to hop from here to India to get to a larger airport, then from the larger airport to the location. It's just travel dynamics. Japan has the easy to get work permit. Is it? But Japan is expensive. It's expensive. And keep in mind, anywhere I go, I have to pay for treatments out of pocket. And so rent and treatments are one cost for me. And so those things have to be less than a certain amount for it to be a viable location. Again, the objective is, how do you save money, save money, save money? Cut costs, cut costs. So, yeah, have to cut costs. That's the point. We have another one. M. Sparks, super sticker. Thank you, M. Sparks. Thank you for that. By the way, Patrick Henderson is going to be on the show. He is going to be on at, oh fuck, the time conversion is rough. 5:30 UK time is what? 1 p.m. All right. 1:30 p.m. He's going to be on at 1:30 p.m. That is going to be 11:15 my time, I think. Okay, that's going to be 11:15 p.m. my time. I initially told him, dude, it's nearly midnight. Screw that. But it's Patrick. He's a great guest. And so I told him, that's okay, we'll do it. Screw it. Buy some cheap clocks with different time zones. I don't have to, I can keep it in my mind. I can keep it in my mind. Usually what I do is I convert to ET because I work on an ET schedule. And so when somebody gives me a time zone, and it wouldn't work anyway, I would have to have one from, oh, Jesus Christ. It would have to be all over, man. It would have to be India, Brazil, Russia, China. It'd have to be all over. But it's not overly difficult. China is effectively 12 hours. So whatever is Eastern time zone, China is just 12 hours later. That's not hard. Europe is 6 hours. So again, whatever's on the Eastern time zone, 6 hours later. I usually convert it to ET and just bounce back between ET. Nepal is more difficult just because it's off kilter. Like, I start the show here at 4:45. And so for the guests, when it goes to the hour for me is at the 45, not at the hour thing. It's just weird. Just very, very weird. We said, damn, you couldn't keep track of all those time zones. You don't have a choice. It's the show. It's just, you're dealing with world politics. So you're dealing with people all over the world. And so you just have to, the easiest way to do it is to keep it into one time zone and use that as your relationship to everybody else. So if you're in wherever you are, you're still working on Eastern time zone. You know, you start the show at 7 o'clock and you just work from there. Easiest way to do it. Easiest way to do it. All right. I'm going to end this. I mean, Vietnam. Vietnam is nice also. I did Vietnam 2 or 3 years ago. I was considering doing Vietnam this time around. I couldn't get a hospital. Couldn't find a hospital. Yeah, couldn't find a hospital. UK doesn't have good media. UK does not have good media, but neither does the US. Neither does the US. Yeah, Patrick's going to be here. He's going to be here at 1:30. Yeah, he's going to be here at 1:30. All right. I'm going to close this. I'm going to call this a day. Well, for the time being. Look, you guys like the video, share the content. Praying for you. Good health, Jamal. Take care. Well, thank you for that. So far I've been doing pretty good. I've been doing pretty good. I've been healthy. I've been stable. Short of fuck ups, I've been fine. I mean, Albania was probably the biggest scare. Well, no, falling in Jakarta was probably the biggest scare. Or at the very least, that was the one that freaked me out. The one in Albania, falling trying to get a taxi, was just embarrassing. But no, so far, no issues. I'm intact. I plan on, I'm probably going to have to hit India. I'm entirely looking forward to it because my trip in India last time wasn't great. But to be fair, I wasn't in the best of health last time I was in India. I was very bad off. But I'm probably going to have to hit India because I need an airport to get out of this area. I may dip into Romania because there's a clinic there that I know of that I can go to. And pivot to Africa. And so I do want to visit maybe Nigeria. I do want to visit, hell, I may even want to visit Kofi in South Africa. I've wanted to go to China, but China's going to be expensive. I wanted to go to Russia. Russia's damn expensive. Russia's way too expensive to visit. I would love to visit Russia, though. Yeah, Russia is super expensive. And again, it's like anywhere you go, you have to get a clinic. So it's always like, it takes a while to find a place. And then once you find the place, it's just a lot. It's there's more that goes into it than just the location. It's always, you have to find other stuff around it to make it work. Jamal is making his way through every country in Asia. Well, I'm out. Well, I guess I am technically in Asia. Well, no, I was in China for 12 hours? The only thing I did in China was sleep, though. I've been traveling for like 40 hours. And when it finally hit China, I was supposed to have like a 16-hour layover in China. And I was like, I just need a hotel. And I got to that hotel and I just crashed. And I think I slept in that hotel up until the point where it was time to get back on the airplane. So I didn't really get a chance to see it. Medical logistics. Yeah, I don't have a choice. It's either that or die. So, yeah. The hospital here is nice. There are a lot of mother hens at this hospital. Yeah, there are a lot of mother hens. The one in Jakarta, they were also very nice. The doctor was very nice, even though I was a bit of a dick to her one day. She was very nice. I have to be honest with you. I prefer my doctors to leave me to my devices. In fact, I prefer not to see them at all. Just find me a clinic. Let me go to the clinic. I will tell you how much you need to pull. I will tell you if I have any issues. I will tell you if I need this other stuff. And when I get labs, I will tell you what needs to be done on those labs. I've been doing this for 31 years. Leave me to my devices. I've made it for 31 years. I will be okay. But that's not the way it works. And sometimes you get nurses that are very protective, maybe the word for it. I don't know. You look healthy yesterday. You mean today? Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I try. I do my damnedest. I do my best. I do my best. All right. What is the health issue you need to address? Only asking as you're speaking on. I have kidney failure. I've had renal failure since I was 17. 2 transplants, both failed. One on the last 8 months. The other one lasted for about 2.5 years. Gave me enough time to finish my degrees. And I don't want another one. And so that stuff has to be mitigated anywhere you go. And mitigating it anywhere you go is finding a clinic, finding a place, etc. So yeah, just is what it is. 7 to 9 had to be in her board chamber overnight. Treatments are every other day. What's to stay strong, brother? Dude, if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't have known. What's it? Sorry to hear that. Again, if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't have known. If I didn't tell you, you wouldn't have known. He's not getting enough rest and enough food. I am getting more than enough food. I've gained weight. I've gained so much fucking weight. More so in Malaysia. Malaysia, they're like the US. They're like the US, like McDonald's, Taco Bell's, Burger King, etc., etc., etc. By the time you get to Jakarta, less so, because there's so much good food in Jakarta that you don't really need that stuff. And food is inexpensive if you're not eating that stuff. So like mackerel, you can, for example, you can get mackerel, rice, and you might pay with delivery $5, $6. You can get chicken, egg, rice, and I mean like just huge quantities of rice. You might be like $4. Like food is really inexpensive and it's really good in Jakarta. Here, I've made groceries the entire time I've been here. I'm not a fan of Indian food. I know this is Nepal, but Nepal is a blend of India and China elements too. So, what is batshit crazy? What? What is this? What is this? What batshit crazy mass deception, endless conflict? What? Okay, I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what that means. Yeah, fasting is good for the body. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Jamal don't drink. He does tea. Actually, well, I don't really drink. Every random blue moon, I may get something. Every random blue moon. Sri Lanka, best food in the area. Does it? Does it? See, I'm not a fan of curry. I'm not a fan of curry. I'm not a fan of curry. Yeah. Momos are dumplings close to China. India street food. Yeah, I'm not a fan of curry. Look, I told you, man, I am a picky eater. I did not even eat eggs until I got to Jakarta. I had never had eggs. When I got to Jakarta, and they feed you at the clinic at that one, and they said, what do you want? And I was like, okay, well, how can I answer that question since I can't read the language and I have no idea what this stuff is? And they bought me, I think it was like chicken, egg, and rice. And I sat there like, okay, fuck it, just eat it, just try it. Loved it. Loved it. I think I had eggs the entire time I was in Jakarta. And then here I went out for it's kind of like a breakfast. So it was like breakfast. I was drinking coffee, and the guy brings a plate, and it's like bread, eggs. It was like a bread, fried egg. I guess you can call it a sandwich, but it wasn't really a sandwich because it was just bread on top of it. Some kind of condiment. I have no idea what the condiment is. And again, the eggs were great. It took me 37 years to try shrimp. Really? 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 Some people can't cope. Dietary advice for neuropathy, diabetes, insulin resistance. So I don't really have dietary advice for it. I could tell you tramadol is fantastic for neuropathy. In fact, tramadol is probably the best thing that I've come across to deal with it. Gabapentin works for it, providing it's not overtly vicious. And you still may need tramadol for breakthrough pain associated with it, because there are days where there are breakthrough pains with it. But gabapentin is probably the thing they're prescribed for neuropathy. Just saying. That's something I can definitely talk about. Ending up in the hospital every morning or every night because I couldn't lay down. I had neuropathy when I was younger. When I think I was 19. I was in college. And I would lay down and I would get this vicious pain in my legs and my feet. And long story short, it ended up being prescribed, defined as neuropathy, peripheral and sensory. It took, Jesus Christ, like 5 or 6 years to regain the ability to walk normally. The peripheral nerves had disintegrated in my legs. The sensories are still off, and it's not exactly right. 90% of the day, there's no issue. Towards quarters of the night, it's bad, in which case gabapentin comes in. Gabapentin helps. For breakthrough, there's tramadol. So yeah. Are you interested in learning language? I am not. I am not. My ex, she's Austrian. She pointed out one day, she was like, hey, you can always move to Austria. I was like, why would I want to do that? I know that sounds horrible. It's like, why would I want to do that? But she pointed out, she was like, well, you have to learn German. And I was like, well, there's the deal breaker. There's the deal breaker. It's not that I'm against learning another language. I would love to. But where's the time for it? Like, look, man, most of my day is planning this show. I don't know what the time will be for it. I don't know what the time will be for it. So, all right. But no, not against it. I would love to. I wanted to learn Spanish. I was in the Spanish Honor Society when I was in school. But that doesn't mean you're fluent in Spanish. And the moment that I went to a Spanish country, I realized how woefully inadequate I was. What are your favorite foods? Bacon is at the top of that list. Everything else goes under bacon. Yeah, everything else goes under bacon. And I honestly, you know what? I'm not going to say bacon. I'm saying bacon because I had withdrawals because I was in a Muslim country for the last 5 months. And you just couldn't find it. There was just nowhere to be found. And then you get to here, and it's like beef is nowhere to be found. Yeah, you can't go wrong with bacon. You just can't go wrong with bacon. Can't go wrong with bacon. But obviously Japanese food, love it. Sushi, love it. Pizza, love it. I will kill for a turkey sandwich right now. I'd kill for it. I'd put a knife in somebody in a heartbeat for a turkey sandwich. Yeah. Again, for whatever reason, you can't find it. Time management. Well, yeah, that sounds good, but it's more difficult than it sounds. I can't resist bacon. It's the only pork I eat. Yeah, bacon is rough, man. When that smell hits, whew, it's rough. the incredible edible egg. I've only recently started eating eggs. American hamburger. There's a, if you're ever in Richmond, Virginia, the best hamburger joint in Richmond, Virginia, I don't know if it still is, but it used to be, Station 2. It is made out of a fire department. And God, the best hamburgers you would find in Richmond. The best you would find in Richmond. I swear to God it is. A turkey sandwich. They don't have them here. Wandy, I swear to God. They don't have turkey in Malaysia. They don't have them in here in Nepal that I've seen in the grocery stores. And they didn't have them in Jakarta. It just doesn't exist. It's almost like they have their races against turkeys. I don't know why. All right, I'm going to call this a day. We're just sitting here talking about food, and you're making me hungry. And what time does I need to get to the grocery store before they close? I am going to say like. I'm going to say share. I'm going to say subscribe. I want to thank all of you that donated and contributed. As I say, you make this show what it is. You do my heart well. I'll put it that way. And you have my deepest appreciation for it. Yeah, when the company went belly up, I didn't know what was going to take place. And I guess my plan was work on your channel. Just focus on your channel. Try not to be overly worried about other stuff. Just focus on the channel and see how it goes. And up to this point, it's done well. Keep expenses low. Focus on the channel. Grow it. Stay the course. So that is my plan. That is what I plan to do. I will try to do my damnedest to keep these shows going well. I will do my damnedest to try to get additional new guests that are informative, subject matter experts, and regardless of what they're talking about. And try to keep you informed. That is my task. That is my job. That is what I try to do. I don't hit that. I fall short of glory every so often, but I do my best with it. So I thank you guys for being along for this ride. I thank you guys for being and allowing this show to be what it is. I thank you for your contributions. I thank you for liking the videos. I thank you for sharing the videos. And I thank you for being here. So I'm going to say like. I'm going to say share. I'm going to say subscribe. And I will see you guys. What time is it? I'll see you in about 3 hours. Be safe. Be kind to the degree that you can be kind. I'll see you shortly.